Bom dia a todos. É uma alegria muito grande recomeçar o Green Rio, esse segundo dia do Green Rio. E queria convidar todos que estão aqui no evento para assistirem o German Brazilian Bioeconomy Workshop, que é a 4ª edição, uma edição para nós muito importante, porque é justamente quando serão apresentados os projetos selecionados do edital que foi lançado exatamente aqui no Green Rio em 2019. Good morning. I would like to welcome everybody. Today, we're going to have to open the second day of Green Rio, the Brazilian-German Bioeconomy Workshop, working together for a sustainable biomass use. I want to highlight that this event that is partially presential, partially online, is a symbol of resilience of everybody who managed to overcome this horrible pandemic that is frightening us. But the important is that we are here, we don't give up, and we carry on. I would like to welcome Dr. Eva Müller, General Director of BMEL, to give her welcoming too. It's a pleasure, Dr. Eva, to have you on board again. A great pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, good morning to everybody. And first of all, before I start, I would like to give a big thank you to Bia, who has worked tirelessly, I know, to organize Green Rio and this workshop, and you have done a fantastic job. So thank you very much. With this, I would also like to say that it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to this year's German-Brazilian Bioeconomy Workshop at the Green Rio. And I'm happy to see, unfortunately, I cannot see the audience at the moment, but I joined briefly yesterday and I saw that there were many representatives of the Brazilian government, of industry, of research and civil society that have come to Green Rio, and I hope many of you are here at the workshop as well. Now, we have been planning this workshop for at least 6 months under uncertain conditions due to the COVID pandemic, and all along, my colleague Hans-Jürgen Fröse and myself, we were planning to come to Rio de Janeiro and to join our Brazilian colleagues at Green Rio and participate in the workshop in person. Unfortunately, there was a combination of factors that arose recently that have made this impossible. You may have heard about the exponentially rising COVID numbers in the past weeks in Germany. And those are one reason because we are no longer allowed to travel abroad for work. Another is the imminent change of our government after the general elections in September, and that requires our presence in Berlin. I was looking forward very much to meeting the new Secretary of MAPA, Mr. Halloum, and also Secretary Morales. And I do regret very much that I cannot be with you today in person, but I'm certainly with you in spirit. So ladies and gentlemen, let me now come to today's conference, the bioeconomy. The bioeconomy offers solutions to some of the most important challenges the world is facing today. I would like to address 3 of these challenges in more detail. The first one is the sustainability of our economic activities. The second one is the fight against climate change. And the third one is the conservation of our biological diversity. The Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations are the driving force of the bioeconomy strategies, both at European level and in Germany. And the principle of sustainability was already defined 300 years ago, and it was defined in Germany. The interesting part is that it was first defined for forests and the timber supply, because at that time, deforestation was rampant in Germany due to mining, due to the need for energy, and also because of the rapid growth of cities. The mining engineer Hans Karl von Karlowitz at the time wrote that only as much timber should be harvested as grows back to ensure a sustainable supply. And this principle has been guiding forestry in Germany ever since. And not only that, sustainability has become a key principle in German politics and increasingly also in our economic activities. The alignment with the commitment of the global community to the 2030 agenda has led us to develop a German sustainability strategy with concrete measures to achieve the global sustainability goals. And through this strategy, Germany strives for resource efficiency, for a circular economy, and for sustainable value chains, all of which find their expression equally in our bioeconomy strategy. In other words, the bioeconomy is an important element of economic sustainability for us, and one without the other is not possible. The second big challenge is climate change. Mitigating the effects of climate change and adapting to climate change are preconditions for making sustainability work and also the bioeconomy. Actions to mitigate climate change can also boost the bioeconomy. For this reason, the 26th Global Climate Conference that just ended about 2 weeks ago in Glasgow has been of central importance for the sustainable bioeconomy. Even though not all expectations on the conference were met, it nevertheless achieved some important results that give us reasons for hope. Among these is not only the decision to phase out the use of coal for energy and to reduce methane emissions, but also the so-called breakthrough agenda. With this agenda, climate-friendly technologies are to become the most cost-efficient, the most accessible, and the most attractive technology options. Technologies that are relevant for the bioeconomy will certainly benefit from this agreement. And more importantly, the Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forests and Land Use was signed by more than 100 countries, including Brazil and Germany. And the countries have committed themselves to end deforestation and forest degradation by 2030. I think this is an important milestone for climate protection, but also for the global bioeconomy. In many countries, a forest-based bioeconomy is very important, on the one hand, for reducing poverty, on the other hand, for a locally rooted sustainable economic development. Many countries, including also Brazil and Germany, have supported, in addition, the statement on forest, agriculture, and commodity trade, or the so-called FACT dialogue, which is a roadmap for action to promote deforestation-free supply chains of agricultural products such as palm oil and soy. Germany has long been committed to deforestation-free agricultural supply chains and has developed its own national guidelines in this regard, apart from its international commitments. And also at the European level, the European Commission has just published a draft regulation on commodities and products associated with deforestation and forest degradation. Once this becomes agreed, it will be legally binding for all EU member states. And last not least, the third of the global challenges is the alarming loss of biological diversity. Biodiversity, as we all know, is a source of life, and its protection is of utmost importance for the survival of humanity. And without biodiversity, there will be no bioeconomy. In other words, intact, sustainably managed ecosystems are the basis for further development of the bioeconomy. And for this reason, the global community must agree on a new and ambitious biodiversity framework post-2020 during the upcoming COP15 that will take place in Kunming next year. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, it is very important that we remind ourselves frequently of the framework conditions for sustainable use of our natural resources, and with this, also the bioeconomy. Climate protection, the Sustainable Development Goals, the conservation of biodiversity, and the respect of planetary boundaries are such framework conditions. It is also important to consider that these conditions are all interrelated and cannot be regarded separately. To overcome all the challenges I just described, we need global cooperation, as no country in the world can achieve this alone. In the German bioeconomy strategy, the international cooperation is therefore included as an important element. But let me also emphasize that there is no general recipe on how to achieve this. And each country has to find its own way. Having said this, I firmly believe that sharing knowledge, experience, and best practices, and conducting joint activities will generate synergies and facilitate this process. And I would say the success of our German-Brazilian bioeconomy cooperation is proof of this. Since 2016, our countries have been working very closely together in the area of the bioeconomy. And approximately 1 year ago, at the last Green Rio, we achieved a milestone by announcing the first joint research call. I have been very pleased by the strong interest in this call because many project proposals were presented, which demonstrates that the bioeconomy is gaining recognition as a development path of the future, but that we also still have a lot to learn. I'm very pleased that we can present to you today 4 research projects that we funded jointly and that will be implemented during the coming 3 years. I look forward to the project presentations and wish all the project teams much success. Dear participants, I wish you a constructive and fruitful exchange during this workshop, and I do hope that you will learn a lot from each other. As I said earlier, we will only be able to overcome our challenges if we do it together. Thank you.
Hello. Hello? Meu funcionou. Thank you very much, Dr. Eva, for your words. I couldn't agree more that cooperation is the name of the game now. If we don't cooperate, we will never overcome the moment we are living. And this presentation here of the success of this bilateral joint call is the best example of we could have of a sustainable cooperation. As the Dr. Secretary Cesar Halum is with a problem because he's coming here, but there is a traffic problem. So I'm going to ask kindly that we first show the message of Secretary Marcelo Morales, who sent us a message since he could not come, but we have here on the table representatives, as you can see. We have Dr. Bruno Nunes, Marcelo Camargo, Tarsila Portugal. So both ministries are represented here. We are very proud that they are here. So I kindly ask you to please show the video that Marcelo Morales sent us very kindly. Please, the video. The video is on run.
Bom dia a todos e, primeiramente, eu gostaria de cumprimentar a senhora Maria Beatriz Costa, coordenadora do Green Rio, e gostaria de saudar também a doutora Eva Miller, diretora-geral do Ministério da Alimentação e Agricultura da Alemanha. E, por fim, cumprimentar o colega Cesar Halum, secretário da Agricultura Familiar e Cooperativismo do MAPA. e é com enorme satisfação que participo de mais uma edição do Green Rio. E em nome do Ministério da Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovações, eu gostaria de agradecer o convite. E esse ano, no seminário Brasil-Alemanha em Bioeconomia, é muito importante porque traz o tema Trabalhando Juntos para o Uso Sustentável da Biomassa. Esse tema foi escolhido porque reflete realmente os resultados da chamada conjunta Brasil e Alemanha em pesquisa e desenvolvimento em bioeconomia. Os projetos que foram selecionados, eles estão em fase agora de contratação e vão desenvolver soluções sustentáveis para o uso industrial da biomassa. E teríamos hoje a oportunidade de conhecer esses projetos que têm grande importância para os dois países. Essa chamada conjunta, convém lembrar, é o primeiro resultado concreto da cooperação Brasil-Alemanha em pesquisa e desenvolvimento em bioeconomia, que foi iniciada lá em 2016. E a gente espera que seja a primeira, entre tantas outras, permitindo que os dois países realmente façam um desenvolvimento conjunto do conhecimento e tecnologia que nos ajude a enfrentar os desafios globais com as mudanças do clima. Além disso, nós temos na bioeconomia uma das principais ferramentas para a retomada do desenvolvimento econômico sobre as bases sustentáveis e circulares. Além da apresentação desses resultados, também poderíamos conferir alguns avanços nas políticas e programas para o desenvolvimento da bioeconomia no Brasil e na Alemanha. Pelo Brasil, ouviremos as experiências do MCTI e do MAPA, destacando aquelas que envolvem o uso sustentável e racional da nossa biodiversidade, como os programas da cadeias produtivas da bioeconomia do MCTI e o Brasil Sócio Biodiversidade do MAPA. E esperamos agregar valor aos produtos que têm origem na biodiversidade nacional, fortalecendo as comunidades que trabalham com o patrimônio genético da nossa biodiversidade. Por sua vez, a Alemanha demonstrará como está implementando sua nova Estratégia Nacional de Bioeconomia, resultado do esforço conjunto entre o Ministério da Pesquisa e Educação e o Ministério da Alimentação e Agricultura. E é importante destacar que a Alemanha foi um dos primeiros países a se estruturar para as oportunidades e desafios que a bioeconomia nos apresenta. Essa maturidade no tema permitiu, por exemplo, que tanto a Alemanha quanto a comunidade europeia inserissem a bioeconomia como destaque para a recuperação econômica pós-Covid, por meio do Pacto Verde Europeu. Esse novo pacto deixa claro como a bioeconomia representa uma oportunidade para repensarmos nossos modelos de produção atual. A bioeconomia mostra que é possível novos modos de produção mais sustentáveis e adaptados às condições e oportunidades locais, e cabe a ela promover a transição do fóssil para o bio, de uma economia intensa em carbono para uma economia de baixo carbono. Porém, para que isso possa acontecer, vamos precisar de muita ciência, tecnologia e inovação. Não é possível avançar em um tema tão complexo sem esforços conjuntos, como o que estamos vendo hoje aqui entre o Brasil e a Alemanha. Novamente, eu gostaria de expressar minha satisfação de participar de mais um passo importante da cooperação Brasil e Alemanha. Tenho certeza que continuaremos a trabalhar juntos para a sustentabilidade global. Muito obrigado e tenham todos um excelente evento. Até mais.
Muito obrigada. É uma mensagem, não poderia ser mais positiva, a mensagem do secretário Marcelo Morales. Agradecemos suas palavras, que vão ao encontro das palavras da doutora Eva Müller. Eu não sei se vocês estão me vendo, que eu não estou vivendo, mas enfim. Eu gostaria de, então, dar continuidade a esse encontro, esse workshop, assim que eu consiga me ver na tela, porque eu não estou conseguindo me ver na tela. Obrigado. Então, I kindly ask you to understand that as Secretary Cesar Halum has not arrived yet, we are going to follow on the program if Dr. Eva Müller agrees. And I immediately pass the floor to Dr. Hans-Jürgen Froes, please, to speak about statements from Brazilian and German ministries of national bioeconomy policies and then implementation. Dr. Froes, please, the floor is yours. We are waiting for the opening of the link of Dr. Hans-Jürgen Froes. There you are. Thank you.
So can you see and hear me now? Because it was
yes,
a bit
yes, we can see you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, thank you very much, and especially thank you, Bia, for the organization of the workshop and all the other co-organizers who helped us to make this possible. As Eva Müller already said, we couldn't come to Rio, but maybe we have the next time, and when we overcome the pandemic crisis, we can do that maybe next year. And it would be really nice to see you in person. As we will hear later on more details on our bilateral call and recently selected common research projects, I would like to concentrate my intervention on some general remarks on bioeconomy, our actual strategy implementation process, and some major challenges, especially in the context of other EU strategies under the new Green Deal. As I already pointed out in our workshop last year, bioeconomy is a concept that may have different meanings for many and for different people. For us in Germany, at least in the ministries, bioeconomy stands for responsible use of all biological resources to produce food, feed, fiber, bio-based materials and energy efficiently and sustainably. And the most important advantage of this approach is that we have a simultaneous consideration and analysis of different biological resource uses. And this allows us to better foresee possible supply bottlenecks and shortages in the biomass use. But on the other hand, and this is as well very important for us, is that for many people, bioeconomy sounds still a bit strange. It's not easy to understand and difficult to operationalize. Therefore, we faced a lot of problems trying to implement adequate and target group-oriented communication measures and to set up bioeconomy-specific funding programs. Another important aspect to be considered is that bioeconomy cannot be seen exclusively from a national point of view. We also have to look at trade-related impacts and to accept that promoting and shaping bioeconomy is not only a national task. And achieving a sustainable bioeconomy is just as climate change mitigation an international challenge that requires national efforts, but also international approaches, and not at least international cooperation, like our ongoing bilateral bioeconomic cooperation with Brazil. In looking now on our implementation process, as we have already highlighted last year, we merged two former strategies, the policy strategy on bioeconomy and the research strategy in one. And this one strategy approach was approved by our cabinet in January 2020 and has now a stronger focus on sustainability issues and takes into account ecological boundaries, climate change effects, and biodiversity aspects. Now in the implementation process, we have to take into consideration a much broader set of policy frameworks, not only the SDG goals, what I mentioned already, But now, and newer strategies coming from the European Green Deal package, which is first the Farm to Fork strategy, the EU biodiversity and the forest strategy, and not at least the new terms of reference of the common agricultural policy. Already last year, we started to establish an adequate governance structure to further implement our new strategy. The key elements of this structure were finally decided in September last year in a high-level meeting of our interministerial working group. The key elements, as I already pointed out last year, is the ministerial steering group itself, the new Bioeconomy Council, and an annual bioeconomy forum where we can assemble and discuss all the results coming from different stakeholder groups. The new Bioeconomy Council was at its first constitutional meeting on the 7th of December last year, and this council is supposed to work on relevant bioeconomy issues with a view to global challenges like sustainable use of biological resources, considering the food security, climate change or climate adaptation, and biodiversity aspects. And he has to or should highlight the bioeconomy trade-offs to evaluate risks and identify possible solutions. And which is for us very important, it should help us to further implement the new national bioeconomy strategy, elaborating recommendations for a concrete action plan. I come to the third point, major challenges for developing concrete actions. Actually, we are already preparing parts of the first draft of an action plan for the implementation. Also, we see a strong need to further support applied research programs, especially for enhancing bioeconomy-related technological innovation processes to push the transfer of innovations into efficient production processes and marketable products. We also have to consider the EU Commission's target proposals within the Green Deal strategies, which I already mentioned before. For biomass use, the most important are, I will not describe all of them, but only some. One is to reduce by 50% the use and risk of chemical pesticides by 2030, to reduce nutrient losses by at least 50%, reduce fertilizer use by at least 20%, reduce by 50% the sales of antimicrobials for farmed animals and in agricultural systems, and to further develop organic farming to achieve 25% of total farmland under organic farming by 2030. As you maybe know, the national government, the new one in Germany, will achieve a 30% percentage by 2030. And we have a lot of framework conditions as well coming from the CAP. There, at least 25% of the budget for direct agricultural payments will be allocated to eco schemes, and 40% of the common agricultural policy budget will have to be climate relevant, out of which 10% have to be dedicated to biodiversity. All these new policy framework conditions and target proposals will have direct effects on our biomass and use, and therefore as well on our bioeconomy. And in my point of view, these EU target proposals will generate certain trade-offs between resource use and resource protection, especially in the forest sector, where we also want to increase the utilization of wood and other renewable resources in the construction sector to really realize higher carbon captures for reaching our climate protection targets. These and other topics have to be discussed in our ministerial working group and with the new Bioeconomy Council, from whom we expect scientific advice for the identification and prioritization of concrete measures for our bioeconomy action plan. Parallelly, the Council will initiate a broader participation process with different stakeholders of the society on selected bioeconomy topics. Results of this process, at least parts of it, shall also be highlighted in the coming Bioeconomy Agenda Forum, which is foreseen on the 1st and 2nd June of next year. And we have calculated that the whole process to finalize the action plan could last from now on more or less 1 year. But that means the end of next year or maybe the beginning of 2023. Now we very much depend on the formation of our new government and the political priorities, as well on bioeconomy or bioeconomy related challenges with a view to biodiversity, climate protection, and a more sustainable farming. In any case, the potential of bioeconomy will only unfold if its environmental additional value is clear and easy to communicate. Therefore, we have to rely on a science-based evaluation of possible negative or positive effects that biomass use may have on the environment. We need to make such scientific results more transparent and communicate them better. And which is very important, it is not sufficient to argue that bioeconomy contributes positively to climate change or climate adaptation or biodiversity. We have to prove and quantify those effects within the existing calculation systems, like, for example, the IPCC methods for calculating greenhouse gas emission reductions. Finally, I would like to mention that we will further support our national bioeconomy monitoring. Some scientific expert groups started already the second 3 years phase, funded by us, and another group will start at the beginning of next year, which will be funded by the Research Ministry. They will try to improve criteria and indicators and models for measuring the bio-based economy and its ecological and economic side effects. And they will try to quantify, for example, imported biomass raw material or imported bio-based products were exploited or produced sustainably. For all these practical questions around bioeconomy strategy implementation, it is certainly worthwhile to think about a more intensive information and experience exchange between countries. And our workshop today gives us this opportunity. And I am open for further questions, maybe later on or bilaterally via email or video conference. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Hans, because your participation on the process, it was very important. Thank you for exchanging so many emails, and finally we reached to have the best solution and the best result. Thank you very much. Looking forward for the next cooperation. For the moment, I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Tarsila Portugal, representing the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil.
Olá, bom dia a todos e todas. Gostaria primeiramente de cumprimentar quem está aqui presente no evento e todos que estão compartilhando desse momento conosco virtualmente também. Cumprimentar o Bruno Nunes, Marcelo Camargo, a Bia, e dizer que é um prazer para nós do Ministério da Agricultura compartilhar mais uma vez nesse evento, né, sobre as ações que nós temos desenvolvido no âmbito da bioeconomia. Então, gostaria de compartilhar um pouco, né, sobre as ações da Secretaria de Agricultura Familiar e Cooperativismo do Ministério da Agricultura, sobre como a gente tem trabalhado o tema da bioeconomia, né, com um recorte muito específico para a agricultura familiar e para povos e comunidades tradicionais. Só um minuto. Então, como já é sabido e a gente gosta muito de reafirmar, né? O Brasil é um país riquíssimo, a gente é um país mega diverso, né? Com 20% aí da biodiversidade do planeta. Então, a gente tem nos diversos biomas, né? Amazônia, Caatinga, Cerrado, Pantanal, Mata Atlântica. A gente tem uma riqueza imensa, Pampa, né? Temos a castanha do Brasil, que é mundialmente conhecido, o açaí. Então, a gente gosta de reafirmar essa biodiversidade rica que nós temos. E a economia do nosso país sempre foi baseada nos recursos naturais, né? Desde o início aí da história do nosso país. E a agricultura familiar vem sendo envolvida, já está envolvida com esse tema da nossa biodiversidade e da nossa agricultura, desde também já há muito tempo. Então, eu trouxe alguns números para a gente ter um panorama, né, do como tem girado a economia em torno desses produtos da nossa biodiversidade. Então, foram cerca de 166 milhões de dólares, né, nos últimos anos, no valor de produção da nossa bioeconomia. Temos aí números do açaí, da castanha do Brasil, das fibras naturais, das oleaginosas, dos óleos, né, buriti, murumuru. Temos também os aromáticos, as plantas medicinais. Então, temos uma riqueza imensa e um grande potencial no nosso país. E alguns desses potenciais, né, que a gente tem, né, para trabalhar economicamente, tanto a alimentação, quanto fitocosméticos, higiene pessoal, plantas medicinais, energias renováveis, bioinsumos agrícolas, biocombustíveis, são alguns dos grandes potenciais que a gente tem para trabalhar no âmbito dessa bioeconomia da biodiversidade, né? Então, a gente tem buscado trabalhar nessa conexão entre os temas da biodiversidade, do território, da agricultura familiar, dos povos e comunidades tradicionais que trabalham com esses produtos da biodiversidade e com o mercado. Esses são temas que giram em torno da bioeconomia, que a gente tem trabalhado no âmbito da Secretaria de Agricultura Familiar, e levando em consideração tanto o desenvolvimento regional quanto essa sociobiodiversidade, né, que é o termo que a gente utiliza para os produtos florestais não madeireiros. Então, por que bioeconomia, né? Bioeconomia é uma oportunidade de reafirmar a sustentabilidade nas concepções de ação de desenvolvimento. Então, essas cadeias produtivas, essas cadeias de valor já vêm sendo trabalhadas há alguns anos, mas a gente enxerga a bioeconomia como uma oportunidade de trabalhar a sustentabilidade e a inovação nessas cadeias. Então, aqui são os temas que giram em torno do conceito de bioeconomia que a gente considera que são fundamentais, né, que é a inovação, né, tecnológica, a inovação, as soluções tecnológicas para essas cadeias que muitas vezes têm suas realidades muito precárias. O mercado é fundamental, né, acesso a mercados e ampliação desse mercado, seja interno quanto mercado internacional, é de fundamental importância. A biodiversidade, né, que gira em torno dessa economia sustentável, e as relações éticas, justas, né, e todas as relações de governança envolvidas nesse tema. Então, o Programa de Bioeconomia Brasil Sociobiodiversidade, ele tem um objetivo, que é o uso sustentável dos recursos naturais, a estruturação produtiva das cadeias envolvidas, né, com o uso sustentável desses recursos, a agregação de valor e o acesso aos mercados, né, visando aí a geração de renda e a melhoria da qualidade de vida para essas populações, né, que trabalham aí no meio florestal, agricultura familiar, e esses povos e comunidades tradicionais que trabalham com essas cadeias. E as estratégias de implementação são apoio a projetos de estruturação produtiva, parceria com a sociedade civil e o setor privado, e articulação com organismos internacionais, instituições de pesquisa e agentes financeiros. E tem a abrangência aí de todos os biomas brasileiros. Acho que é bom a gente relembrar, porque é um programa muito novo, foi lançado em 2019, né, já tivemos a oportunidade de apresentar outras vezes, mas é com muita alegria e felicidade que a gente compartilha sobre o programa. Ele tem aí os eixos temáticos, né, voltados aí, para a estruturação produtiva das cadeias, né, do extrativismo sustentável, né, orgânico, que trabalha na nossa floresta, com os produtos florestais não madeireiros. Então, olhar aí para toda a cadeia de valor. Também temos a estruturação produtiva das plantas medicinais e aromáticas, que também são outras cadeias que envolvem tanto os produtos nativos, né, florestais, como também produtos cultivados. E também os roteiros da sociobiodiversidade, que é fazer uma conexão entre o urbano e o rural, trazer cada vez mais a importância e a valorização dessa sociobiodiversidade a nível territorial, promovendo um intercâmbio entre as populações, né, urbanas e rurais, aí, envolvendo gastronomia, roteiros turísticos, para que a gente venha valorizar essa biodiversidade no nosso território. Temos também um eixo temático voltado para os sistemas agrícolas tradicionais, que é uma parceria com a FAO e o IFAM, né, que é participando do programa da FAO, a gente apresentou a primeira candidatura a ser reconhecido como sistema agrícola tradicional, né, importante aí mundialmente, em 2020. Temos esse ganho, né, as catadoras de flores sempre vivas da Serra do Espinhaço, de Minas Gerais, que foram reconhecidas mundialmente como sistema agrícola tradicional. E temos também um eixo voltado para as energias renováveis, levando em consideração todo o potencial que a gente tem no nosso país da energia solar fotovoltaica, né, para a produção da agricultura familiar, para a melhoria da produção e qualificação dessa produção. Então, vou trazer um pouco do que está em andamento, dos resultados, né, e do que está em andamento no âmbito do programa. Então, eu gostaria de destacar a primeira cooperação Brasil-Alemanha, que a gente faz parte, né. Uma das ações é um projeto de cooperação técnica que nós temos com a agência alemã GIZ, representante do governo alemão, que se chama Bioeconomia e Cadeias de Valor, que tem o foco na Amazônia, olhando aí para as cadeias, né, do extrativismo sustentável, a castanha do Brasil, o açaí, as oleaginosas. Temos também a parceria, e a gente está aqui hoje para falar também da chamada pública, que foi lançada ano passado, voltada aí para projetos de uso de biomassa de plantas medicinais, que o MAPA foi parceiro, junto com o Ministério de Ciência e Tecnologia, com a FINEP. Então, nós vamos, né, apoiar com recursos também para esses projetos que foram selecionados na chamada pública, e é com muita alegria que a gente está aqui presente hoje, né, para falar dessa chamada. Um outro resultado também, como eu já falei anteriormente, são os sistemas agrícolas tradicionais, que foi essa apresentação, né, das catadoras, né, apanhadoras de sempre vivas da Serra do Espinhaço, em Minas Gerais, foi reconhecido pela FAO internacionalmente como um sistema agrícola tradicional, que a gente vem trabalhando aí para conservar, né, trabalhar a conservação dinâmica aí dessa agrobiodiversidade. Um outro eixo de atuação que nós temos bastante forte é em plantas medicinais. Então, a gente trabalha em torno de arranjos de produção e comercialização para plantas medicinais e óleos essenciais. Temos uma parceria forte no sul do nosso país, com a Universidade de Santa Cruz do Sul, voltado aí para as cadeias de óleos essenciais, em forte interação com o mercado. E também uma parceria muito importante com a Fiocruz, né, no qual a gente mapeou 26 cadeias de valor de plantas medicinais, e a gente vem trabalhando para estruturar essas cadeias, qualificando-as e promovendo o acesso ao mercado, ampliação de acesso ao mercado dessas cadeias. Um outro ganho também foi no ano de 2020, o lançamento da linha de crédito do Pronaf Bioeconomia, que é uma linha de crédito voltada para investimentos, para sistemas produtivos da agricultura familiar. Então, é uma política muito importante, né, de crédito do nosso país, e no ano passado passou a ter mais uma linha que é de bioeconomia, voltado para essas cadeias da biodiversidade. Nós temos trabalhado também em parceria com o governo do estado do Amazonas, também apoiando as cadeias do pirarucu de manejo, que é o nosso pescado de manejo sustentável, a castanha do Brasil, o guaraná. Temos também uma forte parceria com a Embrapa, a nossa empresa brasileira de pesquisa agropecuária, né, no apoio aos projetos que a Embrapa já vem apoiando, com projetos de transferência de tecnologia para melhorar e qualificar essas cadeias. Então, tem diversas cadeias apoiadas: castanha, açaí, pirarucu, abelhas nativas, mandioca, cupuaçu, baunilhas, piaçava. São algumas das cadeias que a gente tem apoiado através desse projeto com a Embrapa. E também, no ano passado, a gente lançou uma chamada pública para consórcios intermunicipais, voltado para o fortalecimento da sociobiodiversidade, para a estruturação produtiva também de cadeias da sociobiodiversidade e valorização territorial dessas cadeias. Então, apoiamos projetos, né, nos estados da Bahia, Rio de Janeiro, Minas Gerais, Rio Grande do Sul e Santa Catarina. E aqui um pouco do panorama desse tempo, né, que é um programa recente, mas que a gente tem alguns resultados importantes entre os anos aí de 2019 e 2020. Né? Foram 15 projetos apoiados, beneficiando cerca de 30 mil famílias, envolvendo 11,7 milhões de reais. Né? Tivemos aí no Pronaf Bioeconomia, que é uma linha tão recente, né, que foi lançado ano passado, mas tivemos já 1.377 acessos, né, totalizando aí 88,9 milhões de reais. A gente sabe que isso é só o início, a gente tem trabalhado para ampliar esse acesso, né, para que os agricultores realmente tenham acesso a esse financiamento e melhoramento da sua produção. Foram também 10.870 agricultores beneficiados na política de garantia de preços mínimos para produtos da sociobiodiversidade, que é uma política brasileira muito importante de subsídio às cadeias produtivas do extrativismo, né, aquelas que não atingem o mercado, que vendem o seu produto abaixo do preço de mercado, e o governo brasileiro tem apoiado com o subsídio para que elas possam permanecer nas suas atividades. Né? Então, em 2020, foram cerca de 24,9 milhões de reais apoiando essas cadeias. E o aperfeiçoamento do selo biocombustível social, que também é um outro selo muito importante para as cadeias de biocombustível. No ano de 2021, a gente tem uma nova edição da chamada do programa Fortalece Sociobio, que é para consórcios intermunicipais, com cerca de 4 milhões de reais, apoiando também aí, territorialmente essas cadeias, a Sociobio, além da contratação dos projetos da chamada Pública Brasil-Alemanha, né, que a gente vai falar bastante hoje aqui. A gente tem apoiado com 1,4 milhões de reais. E a celebração de convênios para a estruturação produtiva da bioeconomia nos estados do Mato Grosso do Sul e do Tocantins, apoiando aí as cadeias do Baru, do nosso Cerrado, da Macaúba e dos frutos do Cerrado, com cerca de 2 milhões de reais. Então, esse é um panorama geral que a gente, né, trouxe aqui para apresentar, e que sabemos que tem grandes desafios ainda para enfrentar, e que esse programa é novo e que a gente gostaria de que né, nos próximos anos a gente traga mais e melhores resultados para compor aqui essa mesa tão positiva. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada, Tarsila. Foi excelente sua apresentação. Thank you very much, Tarsila. Wonderful presentation. You gave us the opportunity to visualize how many windows are open for the next cooperation with Germany. Thank you very much. Immediately, I pass the floor to Mr. Bruno Nunes from the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation. Please, Bruno, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Bom dia a todos. Bom dia, Bia. Estão me ouvindo? Agora. Perfeito. Bom dia, Bia. Primeiro, agradecer o convite e mais participação de mais uma Green Rio. Parabenizar a Tarsila, dar uns parabéns também ao Marcelo pelo trabalho na chamada, que nós falaremos bastante hoje. Eu pediria a apresentação também. Eu falarei um pouco das ações. Do Ministério da Ciência para o desenvolvimento da bioeconomia sobre as bases sustentáveis e circulares, né, as ações que nós estamos desenvolvendo nos últimos anos, com especial enfoque num programa que lançamos no final do ano passado e que está sendo, digamos assim, o carro-chefe das ações da coordenação, mas ela abre portas para muitas outras ações, como vou citar. Né, então, cabe primeiro falar um pouco sobre o que o Ministério faz, né? O Ministério tem como sua própria missão contribuir para a produção de conhecimento, contribuir para a produção de riquezas a partir desse conhecimento, e, com isso, contribuir para a qualidade de vida dos brasileiros. Né? Essa é a missão que nós nos pomos, e, para isso, nós temos constantemente um planejamento sobre o Sistema Nacional de Ciência e Tecnologia. Né? Então, em 2015, nós fizemos um documento que ele é estruturante para todo o Sistema Nacional, que é a ENCT, né, a Estratégia Nacional de Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovação. Ela tem validade até o ano que vem, e ela obedece, né, ela é construída com muito tendo como sua base os ODS, né, os Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável, E dentro desse documento, né, que serve para nós como um orientador, um documento de orientação, temos temas estratégicos. São 12 temas estratégicos, e cada um desses temas, ele deveria ter um plano de ação para ser cumprido essas metas de 2022 e depois 2030, né, dos ODS. Dentre esses temas estratégicos, nós temos biomas, e poderíamos traduzir aqui como biodiversidade, né, e bioeconomia. Então, no ano de 2017, ao longo de 2017, nós fizemos o Plano de Ação em Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovação em Bioeconomia, o PACT Bioeconomia, também pautado pelos ODS e pelos compromissos assumidos internacionalmente pelo país, tal como o Acordo de Paris de 2015. Dentro desse documento, a gente traz uma primeira conceituação oficial para o Estado, né, para o Brasil, sobre bioeconomia, onde nós pomos que bioeconomia é um conjunto de ações, de atividades baseadas no uso sustentável de recursos biológicos, né, da biomassa, em substituição aos materiais fósseis, né, promovendo saúde, desenvolvimento e crescimento sustentável e o bem-estar da sociedade, né. É uma conceituação um tanto quanto genérica, e ela precisa ser para o Brasil, né. O Brasil, ele tem oportunidades e desafios quase que únicos, quando somados, quando visto numa visão mais sistêmica, né. O Brasil tem uma grande agricultura, tem uma forte agricultura estruturada, tem dentro das suas áreas de pesquisa, tem uma capacidade científica muito forte, e se destacam exatamente aquelas áreas que são diretamente relacionadas à bioeconomia, tais como ciências médicas, na área de saúde, nas ciências agrárias, ciências biológicas, que são exatamente aquelas nas quais nós mais produzimos e naquelas que nós mais precisamos também para o desenvolvimento da bioeconomia. E tendo todo esse tempo passado, em 2019 para 2020, nós começamos um projeto chamado ODBio, Oportunidades e Desafios da Bioeconomia, que nos proporcionou enxergar a bioeconomia não só numa visão tão estrita, mas a gente enxergar a bioeconomia como um campo conceitual dentro do Brasil. E isso fez com que a gente conseguisse abarcar ainda mais oportunidades para o Brasil, tendo uma visão de que bioeconomia compreende toda a atividade econômica derivada de bioprocessos e bioprodutos. E na busca, né, de contribuir para um uso eficiente, soluções eficientes para o uso desses recursos biológicos, né, sempre focado naquilo que o próprio secretário falou agora há pouco, o secretário Marcelo Morales, em desenvolvimento de novos modelos produtivos, né, para que a gente saia de uma economia intensa em carbono e usuária de recursos biológicos, dependente de recursos fósseis e finitos, partindo para um modelo mais bio, né, mais sustentável, mais circular. Então, essa definição de campo conceitual nós temos como fruto desse projeto ODBio, cujos resultados serão publicados em breve também. Então, dentro ainda daquele primeiro planejamento que nós temos, no plano de ação, ele estabelece 3 linhas principais de ação, nas quais nós trabalharemos. Esse plano ele vai ser revisto, mas ele não muda muito do que nós temos hoje aqui, né? Então, nós temos aí tecnologias para o desenvolvimento de biomassa, tecnologias para o processamento desta biomassa, e então o desenvolvimento de bioprodutos e novos usos para esses bioprodutos, biomateriais, biocompósitos que a gente pode ter. Para que a gente possa ter tudo isso, né, para que a gente possa ter essas linhas, que hoje, pelo projeto ODBio, nós podemos até compreendê-las como tecnologias voltadas à biodiversidade, tecnologias voltadas à agricultura e tecnologias voltadas à biomanufatura industrial. Para que a gente possa ter suporte a isso, nós precisamos antes de algumas ferramentas institucionais. A primeira que nós percebemos é que nós precisamos de um centro de inteligência para a bioeconomia no Brasil. A dificuldade que se tem de compreender a magnitude da bioeconomia no Brasil, ter seus números exatos, faz com que nós precisamos ter aí o que a gente tem chamado de knowledge hub em bioeconomia. E o Brasil é um país enorme, com vários desafios e com vários atores. Só que na mesa nós temos alguns deles, né? Temos 2 ministérios, mas poderíamos citar tantos outros: Ministério de Minas e Energia, Ministério do Meio Ambiente, Ministério da Economia, com ações em bioeconomia, fora os agentes estaduais, privados e acadêmicos. Então, todas essas ações elas precisam ser coordenadas. E por isso a gente sugere a criação de um Comitê Brasileiro de Bioeconomia com governança a nível federal. Agora, falando especificamente em nível do que a Coordenação Geral de Ciência para a Bioeconomia está fazendo e outras instâncias do Ministério estão fazendo para a bioeconomia, né, eu poderia dar um destaque muito rápido a projetos que nós estamos desenvolvendo, sistemas produtivos integrados que garantam a segurança hídrica, energética e alimentar. É uma chamada que nós fizemos em 2017, ela está se encerrando agora, foram 30 projetos contratados, em 5 biomas nacionais: Caatinga, Cerrado, Mata Atlântica, Pampa e Pantanal. Deixamos, infelizmente, a Amazônia de lado exatamente porque sabíamos que teríamos que ter uma chamada específica somente para a Amazônia. Esse programa, essas chamadas, elas vão dar origem, né, a insumos que podem nos orientar aí a programas específicos para desenvolvimento de sistemas produtivos. Um outro programa que nós temos é uma plataforma de gestão do conhecimento em segurança alimentar e nutricional. O Brasil é um país muito, um dos países líderes nos estudos sobre segurança alimentar, né? Então, temos um grande conjunto de conhecimentos que precisam ser sistematizados e usados para políticas públicas. Então, nós estamos desenvolvendo essa plataforma, que é inclusive um local de encontro entre as comunidades científicas, o setor governamental e a sociedade civil para poder discutir os aspectos de segurança alimentar. Essa é uma plataforma que temos estimativa de lançamento no ano que vem. Temos o programa Cadeias Produtivas, que eu vou entrar um pouco mais a fundo no próximo passo. Temos também uma iniciativa muito interessante com polinizadores. Temos uma chamada também de 2017, teremos uma ainda esse ano, sobre polinizadores, né, sobre o estudo dos polinizadores, e isso tende a virar também um programa de ação perene dentro do governo, dentro do Ministério da Ciência, tendo vista a importância do tema, cada vez mais recorrente a sua importância em manutenção, conservação desses atores, desses agentes polinizadores. Também trabalhamos com a economia circular, os estudos sobre a economia circular, e também ferramentas de gestão da sustentabilidade, como o ACV, né, a avaliação de ciclo de vida. Como eu disse, também um outro projeto para nós que nos ajuda a pensar a bioeconomia é o ODBio, Oportunidades e Desafios da Bioeconomia. Ele tem servido como um fórum de debates para nós entendermos a bioeconomia e o que nós devemos fazer. Outras instâncias do Ministério também trabalham com bioenergia, mais especificamente biocombustíveis, e com soluções baseadas na natureza. Esses trabalhos são desenvolvidos em cooperação conosco. E o que a gente pretende de próximos programas são programas voltados para ciência e tecnologia em biorrefinarias, para alimentos do futuro, né, alimentos funcionais, proteínas alternativas, e também toda uma linha dedicada à química de produtos renováveis, né? Produtos químicos produzidos a partir de biomassa, né? De fontes renováveis. Então, partindo um pouco para falar especificamente desse programa, né, o Cadeias Produtivas da Bioeconomia, ele é um programa que utiliza a ciência e a tecnologia para solucionar lacunas do conhecimento ou gargalos tecnológicos que existam em cadeias produtivas da biodiversidade brasileira. Então, nós pretendemos fortalecer ou mesmo ajudar na estruturação de novas cadeias produtivas, né? E a ideia é agregar valor a essa biodiversidade e, principalmente, que esse valor agregado fique retido, em sua boa parte, junto com as comunidades que dependem que trabalham com essa biodiversidade. É desenvolver as tecnologias, as soluções com e para as comunidades. Então, né, visando aí principalmente a qualidade de vida, a preservação ambiental e o desenvolvimento sustentável, desenvolvendo aí novos produtos, novos insumos, novos materiais e até mesmo serviços, né? E nesse caso nós temos aí 3 pilotos. É um projeto que foi lançado em outubro do ano passado e nós contamos aí a contratação de 3 projetos pilotos que nos dariam as bases para várias diretrizes e vários critérios que viriam ser adotados depois. Então, nós contratamos um projeto específico com açaí e cupuaçu, um outro com pirarucu, essas 2 cadeias na Amazônia, e uma terceira cadeia na Caatinga, que é a do licuri. Aqui um pouco do que a gente pretende abranger todos os biomas nacionais, incluindo os biomas marinhos, né? Então, a gente também quer trabalhar com a biodiversidade marinha, nós sabemos aí do potencial enorme que temos com micro e macroalgas, então, também com a carcinicultura, por exemplo, mas aqui é um exemplo de algumas das cadeias de interesse com as quais podemos trabalhar. E os objetivos, né, do projeto, como eu disse, é utilizar a ciência e tecnologia para solucionar gargalos e lacunas de conhecimento e pegar e aproveitar essas oportunidades que a biodiversidade brasileira tem, que essas cadeias nos trazem, né? Agregar valor à nossa biodiversidade, auxiliar no acesso ao mercado por parte dessas comunidades, né? Também auxiliando questões de certificações e regulações, o desenvolvimento de produtos e processos e tecnologias a partir dessa biodiversidade e, principalmente, fazer isso com base circular. Vocês vão ver alguns dos projetos que têm essa preocupação com a circularidade econômica, né? Usando recursos, usando os resíduos ou então os coprodutos dessa cadeia como matéria-prima para a própria cadeia ou para outras, né? Sempre focando em sustentabilidade. Então, esse é um programa super interessante, ele tem um modelo de criação que a gente pretende seguir para todos os outros programas da coordenação que nós fazemos, né? Que nós testamos um conceito, nós contratamos esses projetos pilotos e, a partir deles, nós entendemos quais são as diretrizes e os critérios do programa. Então, nós temos ali, a partir desses 3 projetos, nós percebemos o que queríamos, né? E, com isso, nós constituímos um comitê gestor dentro do próprio Ministério, com as nossas agências de fomento, com partes importantes do Ministério, e chegamos a alguns critérios de elegibilidade, ou seja, o critério mínimo que se tem que ter para que seja um projeto do cadeias produtivas. Então, nós temos que verificar quais são os impactos, eles têm que ter impactos sociais, ambientais e econômicos, ele tem que garantir a sustentabilidade, não só daquela localidade, como do próprio projeto, ele tem que promover a inovação pelo uso de ciência e tecnologia, e ele tem que ter arranjos institucionais sólidos, que possam garantir também essa própria sustentabilidade. A partir desses critérios de elegibilidade, a gente pode, então, criar critérios de seleção. Uma vez que eles passam pela primeira peneira, eles, então, podem ser colocados e ranqueados para serem contratados em futuras chamadas, ou mesmo, caso a gente precise criar um projeto com demanda específica, uma encomenda específica para solucionar um gargalo muito crítico. Então, no caso dos critérios de seleção, dentro de impactos, como eu falei, nós temos que analisar a parte social, a parte ambiental, a parte econômica. Dentro da sustentabilidade, nós verificamos a valorização da sociobiodiversidade, a circularidade econômica, a valorização do capital e a manutenção do capital natural, a sustentabilidade e o desenvolvimento, a aderência dele aos ODS, né, aos Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentáveis. A inovação, nós verificamos como que ele pode produzir novos bioprodutos, bioinsumos e biomateriais, a agregação de valor que se dá pela própria ciência e tecnologia e o acesso a mercados. E, por fim, a parte institucional, a sua continuidade, as parcerias firmadas e todos os arranjos, né, o quão sólidos são os arranjos institucionais firmados para o desenvolvimento do projeto. Então, aqui é um panorama do que... um mapa, na verdade, né, de onde estão os 3 projetos que nós fizemos a contratação. Eles somam, no total, 5,6 milhões de reais, que daria hoje aí em torno de $1 milhão, mais ou menos, né? A gente teve, infelizmente, já foi mais. Mas nós temos aí os projetos com açaí cupuaçu, eles estão em 3 localidades. Eles estão em Tabatinga, em Belém de Solimões, ali perto da tríplice fronteira brasileira. Nós temos projetos no arquipélago de Bailique, no Amapá, e temos projeto em Portel, na Ilha do Marajó. As distâncias, né, quando a gente fala de Amazônia, as distâncias entre o projeto de Tabatinga e de Portel, por exemplo, elas são de mais de 1.500 quilômetros. Então, você está falando de uma espécie que, com certeza, tem suas diferenças de uma região para outra, e isso a gente está estudando, inclusive, também para verificar as composições diferentes existentes do açaí nessas regiões. E qual a ideia desse projeto específico de açaí? É que nós possamos solucionar uns problemas graves que eles possuem lá, que é a questão da conservação, das perdas. O açaí ele chega a perder mais de 50% da sua colheita até a chegar ao consumidor final. E isso se dá por uma questão logística da própria região, né? Então, por não ter cadeia de frio, por ser todo um sistema mais complexo, nós optamos por fazer a desidratação desse alimento, mas não pelo meio da liofilização, que é o que geralmente se faz, mas por uma secagem com energias renováveis que nós fazemos ali. A geração, nós aquecemos um filme feito a partir de uma camada, na verdade, da polpa de açaí, e nós fazemos a desidratação dessa camada, desse filme, e depois nós trituramos isso. Tudo isso com energias renováveis, energia solar e bioenergia, vindo do próprio caroço do açaí que nós acabamos de descascar, de fazer a despolpa. Então, ele tende a ser o mais circular possível e mais sustentável possível. Então, a ideia é fazer esse desidratado de açaí em localidades. Nós vamos validar esse sistema e nós já temos outros ministérios com interesse de pegar essa tecnologia, esses equipamentos que estão sendo gerados, como, por exemplo, o MDR, com rotas de integração. Também trabalharemos com o Pirarucu, estamos trabalhando com o Pirarucu, um projeto já contratado, ali com o Instituto Mamirauá, que é uma UES do Ministério da Ciência. A ideia é construção de um flutuante que vai operar como frigorífico. Ele já é uma infraestrutura certificada pelo MAPA e que poderá produzir ali com segurança do alimento, com segurança do trabalhador, um produto realmente que atenda às exigências higiênico-sanitárias. Isso permite agregar valor, porque o produto não fica somente para consumo local ou muito próximo, ele tem uma segurança desse alimento e ele terá certificações junto com isso, podendo não só ser comercializado dentro do próprio Estado, como para fora do Estado e para fora do país também. E, por fim, nós temos a cadeia do licuri, onde a gente estuda o óleo da amêndoa do licuri e, principalmente, seus princípios bioativos. Nós já temos resultados concretos desse estudo, né? Nós temos aí algumas formulações de bioprodutos, especialmente cosméticos, e alguns que nós estamos testando farmacológicos, além de ter sido demonstrado um grande potencial alimentar do resíduo para a produção de concentrados proteicos. Então, esses são alguns exemplos, né? E é interessante citar que todos eles nós fazemos cartilhas de boas práticas para essas comunidades, trabalhando junto com elas, ouvindo elas. O trabalho com a comunidade é o ponto focal, é o ponto central desse programa, né? Todos os projetos tendem a ver o envolvimento de uma comunidade como um instituto de pesquisa e, por vezes, pode até mesmo envolver empresas. Antes de concluir, só para reforçar aqui, esse programa, como eu já citei, ele é um programa central para nós ali na coordenação de bioeconomia. Estamos para lançar no começo do ano que vem uma chamada, ainda no primeiro semestre, uma chamada pública com recursos aproximados aí de 40 milhões para a contratação de projetos em todos os biomas brasileiros. E são projetos que tanto podem ser cooperativos entre a comunidade e o Instituto de Pesquisa, quanto com a comunidade, Instituto de Pesquisa e empresas também. E é uma satisfação falar que a gente está fazendo isso com a FINEP, exatamente com a mesma equipe do Marcelo aqui, que vai poder citar para nós o trabalho que a gente já tem com eles aí, com a cooperação Brasil-Alemanha. É isso, Bia, muito obrigado.
Wonderful. Hello? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bruno. Good news that we are what's going to happen next year. I'm very impressed with the presentation you did, and most of all that the production chain program is exactly under the framework that Dr. Eva Miller has mentioned in her opening statement. I'm looking forward for the launching of this next public call. Thank you very, very much. We are very much, not so much, but we still have, I would say, 5 minutes to comments. And maybe Dr. Hans-Jürgen Frös would like to do some comment of what was presented. What do you think? Dr.
I think that the other presentations will give us a lot of ideas for next calls probably, but this will what could be discussed in the next steering group meeting in the beginning maybe of the next year with Bruno and others. I don't know who will replace Marco Pavarino in the group, but we need somebody at least from the MAPA side as well in the steering group, and then we can see it as well together with the proposals we had already from Natal. Thank you.
Okay. For the moment, who is replacing Marco Pavarino? It's exactly Ms. Tarsila Portugal, who is here. But I don't want to interfere officially, but for the moment, she's doing a very good work here. We are very proud to have Tarsila with us for the moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bruno, would you like to do some comment about the next steps?
Bem, nós temos aí já um trabalho feito desde 2016 com a cooperação alemã. Nós tivemos aqui dentro do próprio Green Rio a definição de alguns dos temas principais, dos temas que a gente já elencou como prioritários. Nós tínhamos 5 temas, 2 deles a gente já conseguiu abordar nessa primeira chamada e eu espero que na próxima reunião do Steering Committee a gente discuta, né, os potenciais, o que aprendemos nessa chamada e aquilo que a gente pode fazer para a próxima, já tendo em consideração parte desses temas que ainda faltam ser tratados, né? A gente já havia apontado os temas de melhoramento genético, fenotipagem e melhoramento genético de plantas e bioinsumos e controle biológico de pragas. Eu acho que esses poderiam ser temas para se trazer para a próxima Green Rio e a gente já começar a aproximação de pesquisadores, empresas brasileiras e alemãs para uma futura chamada que a gente vai construir. Exatamente, estou pegando as lições aprendidas com essa primeira chamada.
Excellent, Bruno. Thank you very, very much. Well, for the moment, so to continue our schedule, I am very happy to the moment that we're expecting the presentation of the results of the joint call. I'm very proud to have here Mr. Marcelo Camargo, representing FINEP, which did a fantastic work in all over since the beginning. So, Marcelo, I think you should really be proud to represent FINEP here for what FINEP represents to Brazil. Thank you.
Bom dia a todos. É um prazer enorme estar aqui com todos, representando a presidência da FINEP, o general Barroso, o meu diretor Marcelo Bortolini. Queria cumprimentar os meus colegas, o Bruno Nunes, do Ministério da Ciência e Tecnologia, assim como a Tarsila, do MAPA, o Pavarino está, o Marcelo Morales também. And also I would like to congratulate our colleagues from Germany. My presentation is in Portuguese. I think that I will prioritize to speak to the Portuguese people, and I will try to sometimes to translate my presentation to English. As it's possible, the previous presentations, it was possible to understand much better the scenario of biotechnology of Brazil and also the politics that we will face the next years. And we are very, very happy that would like to enhance the partnership with Germany. It's very, very important to Brazil to try to develop and try to go further in the biotechnological aspects and biotechnology too. And also, Bruno, as introducing my presentation, I think that next year we will launch a program trying to establish a huge century of research in some areas, and I think biotechnology, is one of the most important areas that represent to our country the front line in terms of in some specific areas that we can occupy this representative position. And I think that also one of the centuries will be related with the biotechnology. Let's go. I would like, unfortunately, Beatriz, I speak too much, and I think that I don't know if in 10 minutes I can finish my presentation, but let's go. Is this, right? Yes, is this. First of all, I would like to present a brief history of the relationship between FINEP and German. Nesse histórico, a gente tem uma importância da gente estabelecer novos acordos de cooperação e reforçar isso como um fluxo contínuo. E isso é uma das lições aprendidas. I think that the first lesson learned that I would like to present during my presentation, and also I can destack that my presentation will be focused, Beatriz, and operationalize the call that we will present the results. Sorry. Yes, na década de 70, in década of the 70s, it was the first great project that it's possible to develop between Germany and Brazil, in FINEP and the other agencies, and Embrapa. E Embrapa foi com a professora Joana Lisbeth, em pesquisas fundamentais que o Brasil envolveu no Programa Nacional do Álcool, o Proálcool. O Brasil foi pioneiro na questão do proálcool no mundo, e a gente ocupa no mundo essa questão destacada em termos de soluções alternativas de energia. Em 2006, in 2006, we have a cooperation between FINEP and DFG. Nós tivemos a primeira assinatura da cooperação científica entre a FINEP e a DFG. Vocês vejam que nós tivemos um hiato aí, algumas importantes acordos, ou seja, acho que a gente tem que diminuir esses hiatos. A segunda lição aprendida, Bruno, é a questão da importância nós não termos hiatos tão grandes nesses acordos de cooperação. É importante, conforme a Beatriz também destacou, ou seja, que a palavra do momento é a cooperação é o nome do game. Cooperation is the name of the game, right? I think that we cannot have these great periods without doing anything together. And in 2018, in 2018, we have the Green Rio, and unfortunately, in this event, it was possible to establish again a more solid cooperation between the two countries, and then we are thinking in other programs further. Em 2018, então, a gente assinou aqui o acordo de cooperação, né? Em 2019, nós tivemos um memorando de entendimento. In 2019, we signed the MOU between the agencies, and fortunately, it was possible to establish the basis of the call. E aí eu gostaria de falar algumas coisas em relação, são muito importantes, né? Porque numa questão, numa visão geral, então, do que a gente enfrentou. Volto a dizer aqui na questão, durante a minha apresentação, eu vou falar das lições aprendidas. Uma grande lição que a gente teve, Bruno, que a gente precisa realmente concentrar nossos esforços, é a questão das diferenças de legislações. One very, very important point that we must try to concentrate our attention is the difference between the legislations between the two countries, right? I know that for our colleagues from Germany, grant is grant all the time, right? But to ourselves, for instance, grant is not the grant all the time. We must try to distinguish between enterprises and ICTs and other institutions. If you need to give money to enterprise, we must follow some legislation. And if you need to give money from universities and ICTs, for instance, you must try to follow other legislations. This, to ourselves, is a very, very important point that we must try to solve this trouble. Because, for instance, in our country, it was necessary to launch two calls in the same program, right? Então, no nosso caso aqui na cooperação internacional, nós tivemos diversas reuniões, and it was necessary to do a lot of meetings between the two groups, try to understand much better how we will deal with these differences. E fizemos reuniões de aproximação, e definições das chamadas, a definição específica das áreas temáticas. This is also very, very important to point. Is to define the thematic areas is also a great challenge to us, because we must try to call the attention from the European countries, for instance, and also especially Germany, try to harmonize the interests. This is also a very, very important lesson learned, because, for instance, in our perspective, we think that some area is important, but from our colleagues from Germany, sometimes it's not. And then this discussion previously is very, very important to do, to the success of the call. And then in October of 2020, then it was, we have the expectation to launch and to present the results of the call. Unfortunately, and then it didn't happen, because unfortunately we had the COVID. And COVID postponed all the chronogram, and then this is also a great difficulty to us, it's difficult. Unfortunately, we are not with our colleagues from Germany here, and this distance between the groups and the difficulties that we faced, and sometimes with the COVID and the lockdown. Unfortunately, you have a very important late in the results of the call. As I told, como eu falei anteriormente, o Brasil precisou fazer 2 editais. Um edital para ICTs e outro edital para subvenção, exatamente pelas nossas diferenças de legislação. E aí a gente, então, dividiu os recursos harmonicamente na chamada de ICTs e na chamada de subvenção, enquanto que a Alemanha já definiu 2 milhões para os projetos como um todo. And here also we have a very, very important point that we would like to call the attention. That is about the difference between the currencies and the exchange rates. The difference between the currency and the exchange rates, deviate also the budgets in terms of comparison to these 2 countries. For instance, at the time that was signed the agreement, it quite related between the amount of money that the 2 countries will set in this calls. But at the time passed, unfortunately, this exchange rate was very, very terrible to ourselves, and unfortunately the result of this is that we cannot hire so many projects that would like to hire from this call. And unfortunately, at the final of my presentation, we just contracted just 4 projects, and we have a lot of good projects in this same call. And this also that I would like to point out, in this kind of agreement, Bruno, it's possible. I think that we must work very hard, try to establish some method and some methodology that we can, during 1 year, for instance, try to integrate the other good projects to this, not to lose them, because we had too much effort to do the call, to harmonize the things, to select, to combine and to match between Germany and Brazil. How was the good projects that must be selected? Enough, unfortunately, at the end, just only 4 projects was hired. And then we have, for instance, around 30 good projects that could be hired, right? Then I will not repeat, this is the objective of the call. As my dear colleague told, we focus in biomass and also aromatic and medicine plants. Then we divided in 2 areas. Unfortunately, again, I must highlight this. We must divide in 2 calls. This was a complication to ourselves. In our country, we established that if an enterprise would like to submit to our call, it was necessary to put a counterpart in terms of money. Then we set the amount of counterpart based on the revenue, the gross revenue that annually. Then this was some of the activities that we can support. The money that must be oriented to this in our calls. This was a chronogram, right? Then, as I told, too much phases, right? And as we can see that we have too much trouble, especially because we need to answer the questions to our institutions and enterprise too. Beatriz, for instance, as we can see, there is a phase 3, a etapa 3. Poucos observaram no edital que havia explícito no nosso edital uma etapa 3. Essa etapa 3 definia especificamente que os projetos só seriam contratados se houvesse a anuência entre Brasil e Alemanha. Não bastaria que a FINEP aprovasse os projetos e os projetos tivessem notas para serem contratados. Era necessário que houvesse essa harmonização e essa combinação de interesses entre Brasil e Alemanha. Just to translate to my colleagues, as they know about this, we suffered too much, dear colleagues from Germany, that to answer the questions at the end, because a lot of institutions and enterprises asked us, oh, why we are not be hired, for instance, because we have grades, and then they thought that they will be hired at the end. But because they didn't pay attention to our call, that there was a phase that decided that based on the interest in Germany aspects and Brazilian aspects too, just these projects will be hired. This is the criteria, and then let's go fast to the statistics. As I've mentioned in our call to the enterprises, we received 99 projects. 99 projects was begun, and this is also thinking that we must try to highlight and the lessons learned too. As we can see, just 7 proposals was effectively sent to us. This is too low to ourselves and to understand. For instance, why 99 proposals was beginning and just only 7 was sent. And then I think that we must try to work hard to try to understand much better this and try to sometimes to ask questions and try to answer questions to the interesting too, and because to ourselves it was bad. And to the other call, the other call related to the ICTs, the institutions, the academic institutions, then 180 proposals was begun, and just 40 proposals was sent to us. But it is not a bad, but it was a good number. At the end, then it was 7 projects, right, based on these 2 areas. The demand and the call 07, right, related to the enterprise. And the demand of the resources was around 6.2 million of reais. The demand of resource of the call, right? Not counting with the counterpart. And the other call then was more impressive, more high, is higher, right? And then 63 million reais, sorry, the demand. And then as we can see, we received good projects from the north of the country, from the northeast of the country, from the center of the country, and the south. And then, of course, that more concentrated in the southwest and in the south of the country too. This was the timeline of the steps that we did with the German colleagues and the German agencies, that we suffered too much, that we must try to harmonize the things and try to understand much better the different aspects. And then we defined, for instance, just very, very important and very, very curious things, that how we will conclude the grade of the projects, for instance, because they set some grades to based on the researchers, German researchers that help them to analyze the projects, and also we have our grades in Brazil. And then how we will get the final grade to the projects? Then we, after a lot of discussion, and fortunately, Beatriz and Bruno, right, it was not a great deviation. The standard deviation between the projects was not so huge, not so high. Then we established that we would do an average between the 2 grades, and then we set a final list. Unfortunately, everything it was okay. Then this is the final view of the project. And then after my presentation, probably after my presentation, then it's possible to understand much better about the projects and the objectives of the projects that will be hired from the agencies. Then 3 projects from the ICTs, the academic institutions, and 1 enterprise, the B plus, that in terms of enterprises. This is a little summary. This is a little summary of the objectives. I think that I will not lose the time of everybody. I think that I think that I have no more time, right, Beatrice, to speak. I think that I'm finished. And then because we have the specific presentations of them in the further steps. And this is the name of my director, my name, and also I would like to help very, very, very much Rodrigo Scioli, that is here, seated here, that was the manager that also helped us to conduct this call and worked too hard with the team of the department too. To finish my presentation, I think that just to summary, I think that it's very, very important to try then to how to deal with the exchange rates, how to balance the demand, and how to balance the interest between German and country, or other countries too, especially we're talking with German, but how to balance the interest between the countries in terms of thematic areas that must be supported, right? And how to establish a continuous flow to, and try to understand much more about the legislation aspects, that this is much more oriented to us, Bruno, from the ministry and the agents, try to discuss much better about how to not harmonize the aspects of legislations, not to have so bad influence to the results. This is my words. I would like, sorry to mix the Portuguese in English and everything, right? But I think that it was helpful to our colleagues from Germany to understand what I'm talking here. Even then, my presentation is also in Portuguese.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. I think it was very important what you showed regarding the problems that you felt with the legislation. I think this is a big challenge indeed. And then when you mentioned the importance of the continuation, the flow that doesn't stop, such an effort was done, and we cannot just stop and okay move to the next page. We must continue. I'm just waiting for the screen to show the table that we want to show that Secretary, he has arrived. No, but we are very small here. Estamos muito pequenininhos aqui, é o contrário. Aí, obrigada, técnica. Just to show you that we have already here Secretary Cesar Halum, but just not to stop the flow, I'm going to ask Mr. Birger Kerkhoff exactly that he should be the counterpart of Marcelo Camargo to speak, and then after, then our secretary will speak. So please, Birger, the word is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. I understand the presentation will be shown from Rio, or shall I share my screen? Or whatever you prefer. Okay, I can run through this presentation as my colleague Camargo has already highlighted quite a number of issues, so I will try to speed up a little bit. So the history of the cooperation has already been explained by a number of speakers. Also, the joint call has been presented. I think what is important again to stress, so it was an effort to combine 4 different ministries, 2 from Brazil, 2 from Germany, and 3 different agencies for this call. And the other thing which has already been highlighted, that finally the number of submitted proposals was quite high, both in Brazil and in Germany. However, and I will come back to this, we had some issue with eligibility check. And so we ended up with having only 30 common proposals, and out of this, only 23 proposals passed the eligibility check by the funding agencies, and so went to a scientific evaluation both in Brazil and in Germany. I would highlight the objectives again, but this has been mentioned, that's this cooperation in the field of bioeconomy. It's important to work on sustainable solutions with economic, social, and environmental gains. It's important to promote the generation of knowledge and innovative technologies and services based on the rational use of biodiversity. That was a cooperation model, which was already explained, and Marcelo Camargo explains the specific challenges for funding in Brazil for this. The themes were already presented for this. Well, that was the eligibility check, so the qualification step, where the eligibility of the participating institutions was verified by the funding agencies, the adequacy of the documentation presented, and the compliance with any limit values provided by FINEP, PTJ in Germany, or FNR, and also the meeting of the established deadlines for the call. Then the second step was this expert evaluations, merit analysis, with this main criteria, the most important, the technical quality of the proposal and the degree of innovation, the quality of the consortium and the project management, and a third criterion, the outputs and exploitation plans. So the scoring system was explained in detail in the call text, and this resulted in a ranked list of projects. And then, well, there was an issue of looking at the available budget for funding. Well, and one important and very positive result that most of the submitted eligible proposals were of good scientific quality as expressed by the scores they received in the scientific evaluations. Well, and as also said, and we have a different orders there, I think most of the interest was in area 1, so industrial use of renewable resources and biomass, and there was a lower interest in the second area for medical and aromatic plants, which in total resulted also that 3 projects are funded in the first area and only 1 project in the second area. So in total, we will have 15 institutions involved, 8 from Germany and 7 from Brazil, universities, research organizations, and small and medium-sized enterprises. The total cost of the projects are around 3.5 million euro or 21.5 million real. And well, and then the public support or the requested funding, this was already highlighted, that due to the currency changes, this was reduced in Brazil, and it was more or less the estimated amount in Germany. Well, the projects are expected to start in early 2022 and to run for 3 years then. So that are the 4 projects, and after this welcome by Secretary Halum, you will learn more about these projects in detail. And so I won't touch this right now. Then a final important point, and Marcelo Camargo already has touched this, the lessons learned. Well, we learned that we still can, well, we have communicated a lot between Brazil and Germany and between the different partners, but there's still a need to better communicate, to understand and to document the national time plans, the priorities and the necessities beforehand. We also have unfortunately had to learn that the practicalities of communications are not this easy. So we have still to improve on finding reliable and convenient ways of communications. And COVID-19 hasn't made this easier, I have to say. Then one idea for the future, to have one central submission platform for one joint proposal. So this could be more effective, and it could make less work and confusion for the applicants. So one joint proposal, both for the Brazilian and the German side, where the individual parts and contributions of the Brazilian partners and German partners are described in detail then. Then one comment we received from the experts that they felt that a number of times still a better description of the proposal contents would be helpful. And also they made recommendations that the exploitation plans in Brazil and in Germany could be outlined in more detail and more clearly there. Well, and then the last lesson learned is, but that's a decision up to the ministries involved, if possible. So the budgets should be increased in the future call, as there was a number of projects with very good scores, which unfortunately could not be funded in the end. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Birger. You were very short, but very objective, and your presentation is a good roadmap for us. So immediately I pass the floor to Secretary César Halum, who is going to say some statements regarding the Brazil role in this scenario.
Good morning. Foi muito bom ter ouvido todos esses comentários a respeito do edital. Sei que a gente, a cada processo, procura melhorar, procura facilitar o acesso, mas dizer que o Brasil sempre participou e sempre vai participar e sempre vai procurar uma cooperação com o governo alemão. Nós temos tido ótimos resultados nessa parceria. Então, trabalhar com vocês tem ajudado muito ao desenvolvimento, principalmente da bioeconomia aqui no Brasil, permitido desenvolver projetos que cumprem todo o regramento de sustentabilidade exigido hoje pelo mercado mundial e, portanto, é uma cooperação sempre de sucesso. Entendemos as dificuldades que ocorreram no edital, mas o importante é que ele está concluído. Nós temos já foi feita a seleção, é uma fundação no estado de Goiás que vai executar o projeto de pesquisa na área de plantas medicinais e de plantas destinadas à fabricação de cosméticos, em parceria com a Universidade Federal de Goiás. A contrapartida do governo brasileiro está pronta e para ser executada, juntamente já com os recursos do governo alemão. Então, é uma parceria que sempre deu certo e espero que continue. Estou aqui não só para prestigiar o Green Rio, mas eu estou aqui para dizer em nome, e acho que posso falar em nome do governo brasileiro, porque aqui represento o Ministério da Agricultura, Pecuária e Abastecimento, de que o Brasil tem interesse em continuar sempre com os termos de cooperação com o governo alemão. Me desculpem a brincadeira, mas a única vez que a Alemanha fez mal ao Brasil foi naquele 7-1. Mas que nós já perdoamos, entendeu? Já perdoamos e tirando a brincadeira, levar a vocês uma seriedade de que há um interesse do governo, nós queremos continuar essa participação. E já existem outros programas no Brasil que são executados com empresas alemãs. O GIZ tem participado muito conosco e tem sido sempre muito importante. Então, fica aqui registrado o desejo de continuidade. E espero que os próximos editais sejam um pouco mais facilitados, mas que nós vamos continuar participando com a mesma intensidade. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Secretary. I think everything you said, including in the 7-1 that we had to accept in the soccer game, but taking that apart, we are very happy with this partnership, with this cooperation. So to go straight forward and to rescue the time, I would like to invite now to talk about the project, Native Brazilian Plants as a Source of Innovative Raw Materials for a Sustainable Agriculture and Cosmetic Use, Contributing to an Enhanced Bioeconomy. We have Professor Jörg Rinkelby and Professor Lorena Ramos Freitas de Souza. The floor is yours, and the only thing I ask is please that we have 10 minutes. Let's try to respect the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Very well. Okay, a very pleasant afternoon from Germany and a very pleasant morning to Brazil. It's my pleasure for being here today, and thank you for the possibility to give us a small presentation here. So I'm Jörg Rinkelby from Wuppertal University. My background is agriculture, and my major research areas is trace element and nutrients in soil, plants, and in water. As you mentioned, native Brazilian plants as a source of innovative raw materials for a sustainable agriculture and cosmetic use, contributing to an enhanced bioeconomy. The overall objective of our proposed project is to develop innovative raw materials based on Brazilian plants for the cosmetic industry that can be economically and rentably produced. We have a few project partners from Brazil, is the University of Goiás and the University of Sao Paulo, as well as the company Life Aloe. From Germany, our team consists of two universities, University of Wuppertal and Freie University of Berlin. And that you get to imagine where we are. University of Wuppertal is in the western part of Germany. And here's agricultural expertise about nutrients, trace elements, toxic elements in soils and plants with my few of my team members, Dr. Shahin, Dr. Melo. And the Freie University of Berlin is led by Professor Melzig and Dr. Weng. Here's the Institute of Pharmacy, and the expertise is here about pharmaceutical issues. How about the project structure and the different work packages? At first, our aim is to create biogeochemical and agricultural knowledge. In work package 1, the UFG will create the domestication and propagation of native medicinal and aromatic plants and produced secondary metabolites. The UNIFEST will study microbial and toxicity effects of the raw materials, and the University of Wuppertal, we study nutrients and trace elements, which can be also toxic. So trace and toxic elements depends only on the amount in the soil-plant interface. And then in our second package, we come to technical solutions and practical applications. The Freie University of Berlin will conduct pharmaceutical studies, and our Life Aloe company will develop phytocosmetics. To go a little bit more in detail to those of you who are more interested in the scientific goals, the specific objectives of UFG are to examine the interactions between soil types, biofarming, environmental conditions, and plant growth, and the productivity. And they also want to domesticate native medicinal plants and propagate organic farming. Further, we want to characterize the chemistry compounds from raw materials and to identify new anti-aging and skin whitening agents, which can be used for the cosmetic industry. The objectives of the UNIFESP are to identify the microorganisms, to standardize the manufacture of raw materials in the company, applying good management practice for quality control in the process, and investigate the raw material, especially with view to the quality and also with view to the toxicity of specific cells. The objectives of the Wuppertal University are to study the cultivability of Brazilian plants, and we want to test if those plants are able to grow on soils in Germany, and we also want to quantify the effects on the contents and the availability of both of nutrients and trace elements in the soils, on the plant growth and the productivity. We further want to determine the nutrients and trace element contents in the soil of the Canudos settlement, and we want to explore the influence of soil properties and the influence of content and availability of nutrients and trace and toxic elements on the plant growth and plant productivity on the soils in Brazil, which are used for the cultivation. The Freie University of Berlin will evaluate the antimicrobial effects of the raw materials obtained from the native Brazilian plants, and those should be against bacteria species related to dermatitis and also wound infections. We want to investigate the anti-inflammatory activity of raw materials using different experimental models, and we also would like to investigate the secondary metabolites which are responsible for the pharmacological potential revealed in the raw materials. And of course, we also want to be in contact with authorized companies from Germany aiming to expand the laboratory market, not only in Brazil, but also in Germany. And our company, the Life Aloe company, which is situated in Brazil, want to transform the plant scientific knowledge in raw materials for a cosmetic application. We want to create products which can be used. We want to use nanotechnology to incorporate raw materials in cosmetic use, improving the stability and efficiency. And we also would like to provide conditions for the regions where we are working on to become a sustainable supplier of organic crops of the company. With this, I would like to give to my colleague and project partner, Professor Vanessa. Oops.
I'm trying to share my screen in the presentation. Everybody's listening to me. I don't know.
Yes, thank you very much for being with us. Thanks, Lorena.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor Jorge, and thank you for the organized committee of Green Rio. It's a great pleasure to have a talk in Green Rio in this workshop. As I was introduced, I'm Lorena Souza from Federal University of Goiás, Catalão. Now known as Federal University of Catalão, and one of the members of Brazilian researchers related to this project. Our project has been approved in this call of Bioeconomy project, which involve MCTI, FINEP, and FNDCT in Brazil. And here show who are involved in this project. In Brazil, we are 10 researchers with different expertise from these two universities, UFG and Unifesp. And we will work together with Live Aloe. This company have experience in producing phytocosmetics in a sustainable way. And the popular knowledge of native Brazilian plants will be explored from Canudos settlement, also called as Guerreira de Canudos. And this woman group have been using plants for phytocosmetic application. However, these phytocosmetics are without scientific knowledge, and they cannot have an expressive gain because of the lack of control agency authorization for cosmetic commercialization. And in this view, the scientific knowledge produced by Brazilian and German researchers it will be used for new raw materials for cosmetic industry and beyond. So, the idea it is to impact this community, improving their conditions in social and economical ways. So here I will present to you how it will be Brazilian contribution to afford the goals of this project. So 80 plants were selected. These plants will be collected and the crude extracts and essential oils will be investigated in the biological and chemical point of view. The bioactivity evaluation will be performed in order to find new anti-aging and skin whitening agents. Then, finding interesting plants, we will investigate how to propagate and manage these species for organic farming. After that, the next step would be to standardize manufacture of raw materials and the company, Aloe, and to include these raw materials in their cosmetic formulations. In addition, the company, together with researchers, will provide conditions for the community, Guerreira de Canudos, to become a sustainable supplier of organic crops to Brazilian company Aloe. Here's just some information about researchers and the company members involved in this work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very, very much, Loriana. It's an inspiring project. Congratulations. Congratulations to you and Professor Jorg. So immediately, I would like to invite the next project.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought, please, go ahead.
I would like to have one important question, if possible.
Please.
Only one.
Of course it's possible. Everything is possible. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Because we are planning to cooperate very closely, we also need soil and plant samples from Brazil to transport to Germany. And we figured out that the regulations concerning custom are very difficult. We certainly need the help from your institutions to arrange a smooth transport of those samples for scientific purposes to the universities. This is a very important issue. Perhaps you can help. You can find a way to support this.
I'm just passing your message to Mr. Camargo. I think he will later will send you a message. It's better? Okay. But it's registered. Thank you very much. We keep in touch. Feel free to come anytime. So now, if we can continue, I would like to invite Acro Alliance, development of agronomia value chains, from the seed to high-value products for a global bioeconomy based on the sustainable use of local biodiversity.
Sustentável da biodiversidade local.
And Dr. Sérgio Motoiki and Dr. Thomas Hilger. Please, 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
10 minutos para a fala do senhor.
You're mostly welcome.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sérgio Motoiki, and I'm from University of Viçosa. And I and my colleague, Dr. Thomas Hilger, from the University of Hohenheim, will present to you the Acro Alliance, one of the projects selected in the Brazil-German call this year. So I'm going to start stating what is Macaúba or acrocomia, and Thomas will enter in more detail about Acro Alliance. Macaúba or acrocomia, as known in German, is an endemic palm tree that grows in Latin America, and we have lots of populations of this acrocomia in Brazil, especially in Cerrado area. But what is so interesting in acrocomia? Acrocomia actually is a very prolific producer of an edible fruit, from which we can extract edible oils. Some published reports point for more than 5 tons of oil per hectare per year, without considering several other valuable products such as fiber, proteins, and biomass. These fractions from Acrocomia fruit have an ample application in several industries, including the food industry, cosmetics, oil chemistry, pharmaceutical, and bioenergy. Most interestingly, this species is a native species from the Brazilian flora. And in other words, it's a part of the Brazilian biodiversity. Also, Acrocomia is a resilient species and grows in a marginal soil, such as degraded pastures. Because of that, it's a perfect species to integrate with grass and cattle in a so-called agro-silvopastoral production system, which is a very sustainable production system. Acrocomia has been explored for a long time to produce fat and vegetable oils and was a reliable feedstock for the oil industry in the mid-20th century in Brazil and in Paraguay. Despite the great potential and the recognized reliability of this feedstock, Acrocomia is not fully domesticated yet. In those days, all Acrocomia fruits were gathered from native plants grown in dense palm fields found in Brazil and in Paraguay. Only in 2007, with the development of the protocol of the germination, we became able to start plantations of these palm trees. This germination allowed production of stock plants and made possible the agricultural exploitation of this Acrocomia as a crop. Acrocomia isn't a new product, as you could see. However, it's been neglected for decades since other oil crops such as soy and oil palm dominated the market. We believe that the development of Acrocomia value chain will boost the bioeconomy in Brazil, contributing to the sustainable agriculture. I believe Thomas now has more information about our project. So Thomas, the word is yours.
The sound.
You have no sound.
Is my sound now available?
Yep.
Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes, very well. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Let me go back. Thank you very much, Sergio, for preparing the floor. Bom dia or boa tarde. I'm not sure about this transition around lunchtime in Brazil. And good afternoon from Stuttgart. Yeah, you may ask, why are we interested in this very interesting plant? And therefore, I would like to start a little bit with the history here at Hohenheim. At our university, Macaúma has become an important research issue as it fits very well to bioeconomy. And that's one of our research focus here at the university, which you see here in the background, the castle of our university, where we are located. And biodiversity, we also learned in some of the speeches today, is very important in terms in its role for bioeconomy, but also if we think in future situations and let's say the livelihood of people around the world. And I think Here also Bruno Nunes has already put some things up regarding the biomes in Brazil, which are very valuable in terms of these species and this biodiversity. We at Hohenheim started to work with Macaúba in 2009, and this led finally to an Agrocomia hub that we established at our university around 2017. When we now look at Agrocomia research, and Sergio mentioned a lot of the excellent qualities we may receive from this precious species, is already available, but most research refers to its botany, propagation, processing, or its use in bioenergy, health, or nutrition, but also it is related to compounds we may find by this species. Despite these advantages we find in this species, there is also a lot of problems when looking at establishing it on the market. And we ask why is that if you have a plant which is so rich and so interesting in terms of bioeconomy? And therefore, we initiated an Agrocomia workshop in Hohenheim with experts and practitioners from various countries around the world, but mainly in Latin America. And we invited industry partners, but also entrepreneurs and other stakeholders to this workshop. We discussed the state of art in Macaúba research and identified bottlenecks and gaps that hamper acceptance and uptake of Macaúba at the market. One conclusion of our workshop was Macaúba is extremely interesting, but the link to industry, however, is relatively poor. And this is very important to bring to provide this link between industry and research, but also people who are interested in establishing plantations with Macaúba. And this is extremely interesting, as Macaúba is a very interesting species in contrast to oil palm or palm oil, and Macaúba can serve here as a sustainable alternative and solve a lot of problems we have in terms of environmental issues associated with the African oil palm. When we look at how to develop something to promote Macaúba, then we need joint activities, and this across various disciplines, and also involve several actors so that there is also access for market for Agrocomia. And therefore, we joined in 2020 a research consortium with colleagues from Brazil and Germany and developed this Agro Alliance project concept for the Bioeconomy International Call. Agro Alliance deals with the development of Macaúba value chains from the seed to high value products for a global bioeconomy. This concept can serve as a blueprint for the sustainable use of local biodiversity in future. And this, I think, is an additional add-on related to our project. As said, it's an interdisciplinary project between the University of Viçosa, the Agronomic Institute of Campinas, and the Food Technology Institute. Both are located in the state of São Paulo. Two German institutions, the Fraunhofer Institute and us, and a couple of industry partners in Brazil and Germany. The goal of Agro Alliance is to develop high-value refined oils, proteins, and dietary fibers from Macaúba foods, while addressing the major gaps for the development of a sustainable Macaúba value web. We have a biorefinery concept that follows from development of seeds and prime material for planting via cropping systems to processing and storage of Macaúba, and then also developing a biorefinery concept of this improved material we want to develop within Agro Alliance, and then also to look at sustainability issues of the value web. And all this is carried out in 8 work packages. And finally, after we have established the information on the quality of the value web, we also want to disseminate the information and particularly address stakeholders in that issue. With that, I think the time is already over for my presentation. There is also outside at the booth a poster of our project where you find some more information on the structure of the work packages and what we do exactly in the different work packages. With this, I would like to thank again the organizers of this event, and I'm looking forward for a very fruitful cooperation with our Brazilian and German partners in that project. Thank you for your attention. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thomas. Maybe if you could allow us to share your presentation in the Green Rio event, because unfortunately we were not able to see the whole presentation, but you explained it very well. Thank you. Please send to allow us to promote in the website.
I can send a presentation in PowerPoint, but
yes,
we were
please.
asked not to present slides, and therefore we made it orally.
Okay, thank you very much. It will be a pleasure. Congratulations again for the project. Thank you. So now we can continue with micro-hop, micro-encapsulated hop extracts as feed additives for sustainable poultry production. Dr. Catherine Castiglione and Dr. Sebastian Strout, please, the floor is yours. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Sebastian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Then I will be at your service at skipping the slides.
Yes, thank you. So good morning to everybody. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to present our project, MicroHop, micro-encapsulated hop extracts as feed additives for sustainable poultry production. In this presentation, we are going to tell you something about the project teams. We are also giving you a bit of background and outline our main project objectives. So starting with the project teams, they are localized at 2 universities who are already collaborating since 1999. The Friedrich-Alexander-Universität Erlangen-Nürnberg, FAU, located in Bavaria, about 200 kilometers north of Munich, to give you an idea. And the Universidade da Região de Joinville, Univille, so it's the University of the Joinville region in the Santa Catarina state in South Brazil. So these 2 universities, as I said, they cooperate almost 20 years now in the field of biology, biotechnology, but also dentistry and archaeology. So there is a certain, let's say, friendship and intimacy already established between many of those who work there. So our team is composed of our principal investigator, Professor Dr. Gilmar Erzinger. He has experience with the extraction of bioactive substances in pharmacology. I will be responsible for coordination both inside Univille and also with FAU. We have Dr. Daniela Delvig de Lima, who is also working on the pharmacology part of our project. Then we have Professor Dr. Paulo França. He is the head of the molecular biology lab, where also Dr. Leslie Freire works. Well, they will take on the questions that can be solved with molecular biology. We have Dr. Andrea Schneider, who is an industrial microbiologist, and our data scientist is Dr. Rodolfo Prates. He will organize and analyze our data and take care of all the statistics. And then we have Fernando. He is our veterinary, and he will supervise the in vivo tests we are going to perform with our extracts. And now I pass the word to my colleague, Dr. Catherine Castiglione from FAU. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. So it's my pleasure to introduce also the German partners. Of course, I will be deeply involved in this very interesting project, and I will be supported by some senior scientists at my institute. First of all, of Dr. Anna Becker. She's the head of my bioanalytics group. Then Dr. Holger Hübner, who has ample experience in the field of animal cell cultures, and Dr. Stefan Schwab, and he's a leading expert in the field of microencapsulation here in Germany. So what is the project all about? We want to develop a new feed additive for chicken farming. So chicken is a very important meat. It actually dominates the field of meat consumption because it's generally affordable, it's low in fat, and it faces few religious and cultural barriers. Seen from a global perspective, Brazil is the #1 poultry exporter worldwide and the number three poultry producer behind USA and China. And this is something what we see on this slide, where we can see that Brazil is really a top producer of poultry globally. The predominant culture condition for chicken farming in Brazil is indoor confinement with high stocking density. And there, many antibiotics are administered, for example, for disease control. This is obvious. But it has also been shown that non-therapeutic use of antibiotics leads to an increase of feed efficiency and slaughter weight. And this is why antibiotics administered in this way are also called antibiotic growth promoters. So, of course, this also leads to some undesired effects like multi-resistant bacteria and so on. And so we face the challenge to identify AGP alternatives to ensure an efficient and also sustainable poultry production. And here the project comes into play, and our main project objectives are, and we want to develop a novel feed additive on the basis of hop. Hop is a very important plant here in Germany and also for Brazil, because Brazil and Germany, we all love beer, and of course hop is an important ingredient there. And we want to make a decisive contribution to a healthy and sustainable poultry production. And overall, this project should lead to a significant reduction of antibiotics. We want to develop a phytogenic alternative to antibiotic growth promoters. And all in all, we want to improve the quality of meat and enhance food safety. Why hop? Hop is well known for its antimicrobial properties. And additionally, studies have already explored the use of hop ingredients as antifungals, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer drugs. So there's a lot of bioactivity in hops. And those bioactive substances, they can be attributed to different hop components. For example, the humulones or the lupulones. Essential oils are also polyphenols, and especially the lupulones have already been shown to be able to serve as AGP alternatives. To make the hop extract that we want to produce from different raw materials more bioavailable also for the poultry, we want to improve this by microencapsulation, and this should also lead to a prolongation of the shelf life of the feed additive, improved protection against oxidation, and all those benefits. And if it's really, if it does make sense to do the microencapsulation and also to analyze which primary sources are good for making and producing the extracts, this will be accompanied by an economic feasibility analysis. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. Very interesting presentation. Congratulations. Wonderful project and very important in the scenario that we're living now. Thank you very, very much. So we go to the next presentation, Bioeconomy, development of Amazonian biodes for renewable resource for industrial coloration of biopolymers. I would like to invite Professor Carlos Peter and also Dr. Roshan Paul from the University Federal Rio Grande do Sul, and Dr. Roshan Paul from the Textile Institute of Textile Technology, Aachen University. Please, the floor is yours. 10 minutes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will do my speech in Portuguese, and after Professor Roshan will shift for English. I would like to ask your help to charge our presentation, please.
Professor, técnica, eu preciso da apresentação dele, do Dr. Carlos Otávio Peter, por favor. Just a minute. Só um minuto, Dr. Carlos. Está vindo.
Sem problema.
Obrigada. Já entrou. Obrigada, técnica.
Deixa eu ver aqui. Não está aparecendo para mim, eu estou aparecendo para mim. Agora sim. Muito obrigado. Bom, bom dia, boa tarde, senhoras e senhores. Agora, boa tarde para nós também. O título dessa apresentação do projeto é Desenvolvimento de Biocorantes Amazônicos a partir de recursos renováveis para a coloração industrial de biopolímeros. Então, eu sou o Carlos Peter e na sequência, o meu colega, o Roshan, vai dar continuidade a essa apresentação. Next, please. Bom, esse projeto, na verdade, é uma feliz conjunção de esforços. Tá? Tudo começou há alguns anos atrás com o mestrado de um brilhante aluno, né, o engenheiro sênior Sérgio Knorr-Velho, emprestado pelo MCTI na época, que fez o mestrado lá conosco em Porto Alegre, e no final da defesa dele ele disse assim: o meu sonho é pintar o mundo com as cores da Amazônia. Bom, estamos aqui, né, hoje para falar sobre esse assunto. Tá? Então, para realizar esse sonho, né, a empresa Beplast encampou a ideia e nós fizemos contato com o ITA da Universidade de Aachen, através do professor Thomas Gries, que imediatamente colocou toda a sua equipe à nossa disposição para esse esforço conjunto que resultou nós estarmos aqui hoje. Tem até uma ligação sentimental com a Universidade de Aachen. Para a informação de vocês, o nosso mestrado nos anos 70 aqui começou com as aulas do primeiro trimestre oficial da pós-graduação foi dada por professores da Universidade de Aachen. Vejam só, né? Eu fui orientado por um professor que fez o seu doutorado nos anos 80 na Universidade de Aachen. Então, nós temos uma ligação muito forte com essa instituição. Next, please. Falar do nosso parceiro, na verdade, esse projeto foi encampado pela Beplast, com apoio incondicional aí do diretor técnico, né, o senhor Alexandre Melhado, e do diretor estatutário, o senhor Corinto de Bem. Tá? É uma empresa jovem, né? Na minha perspectiva, 1991 é muito jovem. Ela é líder nacional no mercado de concentrados coloridos para a indústria. Ela tem o seu headquarter em São Leopoldo, né, no Rio Grande do Sul, e tem uma unidade em Sobral, no Ceará. Tá? Ela tem diversos produtos para diferentes segmentos. Tá? Então, posso citar como segmentos: calçados, agricultura, indústria pesada, automotiva e utensílios de uso doméstico. Next, please. Nós temos a felicidade de contar com o Instituto Nacional de Pesquisas Amazônicas nesse projeto. Eles são uma referência mundial em biologia tropical. e a missão precípua do INPA é expandir de maneira sustentável o uso de recursos naturais da Amazônia. Next, please. Então, nas pessoas da professora Francisca Souza, que eu tive o prazer de conhecer durante o início dessas nossas atividades, do professor Jorge Porto e da própria diretora Antônia, né, e de uma equipe jovem e super motivada naquela instituição, a gente tem aí o apoio imprescindível, né, para atingir o objetivo, e é a meta do INPA, né, desenvolver e caracterizar os corantes amazônicos. Tá? Next, please. Que depois vão ser trabalhados no Instituto de Química, né, da URGS, onde nós temos lá o professor Éder Lima e Edilson Benvenuti, e o apoio ainda do professor João Henrique, que terão a árdua missão, né, de pegar esses corantes naturais e encapsulá-los, protegê-los, para que eles resistam aí a esforços mecânicos e térmicos, os quais serão submetidos, como a gente vai ver na segunda parte dessa apresentação, quando o professor Roshan se manifestar. Next, please. O nosso laboratório aqui também, do qual eu sou o atual coordenador, né, que trabalha com processamento de minérios, mas há muitos anos, né, uma das linhas principais é a colorimetria aplicada, voltada para corantes inorgânicos, tá? A bem da verdade. Mas que ao longo desses anos ele acumulou uma quantidade de conhecimento em modelamento físico, de predição da cor de misturas complexas, tá? E mais recentemente uma parte de modelamento matemático através de machine learning, já que esses corantes eles vão se deteriorar com certeza, mesmo com essa proteção, ao longo dos trabalhos. Na fase piloto, nós teremos o apoio ainda do auxílio diretamente no nosso laboratório da Basso Engenharia, através de um brilhante engenheiro que está nos apoiando desde o início, que é o engenheiro Eduardo Basso. Tá? Muito importante, então, esse trabalho. A gente pretende que todos os stakeholders, desde povos originários, populações ribeirinhas, as cooperativas amazônicas, empresas de base tecnológica, como a própria Beplast e a BAC, pelo lado alemão, e as próprias universidades, nós vamos todos velar para que todos esses stakeholders sejam favorecidos nesse projeto. Então, agora, eu passo a palavra ao nosso colega Roshan, sem antes agradecer ao Marcelo Camargo, em nome da FINEP, ao MCTI, o Bruno Nunes, né, e a própria organização do evento, a senhora Maria Beatriz, tá, pelo apoio, né, que nós tivemos, né, e agora nós temos que fazer a nossa parte. Então, por favor, o meu colega Roshan, é um prazer lhe ouvir e prazer lhe ver também.
Thank you, Professor Peter, for explaining the Brazilian side of the project. So now I would like to give introduction to the German side.
Ok. Apresentação do senhor Roshan.
Presentation.
Por favor, a apresentação do professor Roshan Paul.
I'm not able to see the presentation. Yeah. The next one, please.
Não está aparecendo aqui agora.
Yeah. So, Institute of Textile Technology of RWT is Aachen University is the bilateral coordinator for this biopolycoal project. So our main mission is to develop fiber-based solutions for society needs. So we start with natural and synthetic fibrous material, then we go for the yarn development, fabric, composites, and semi-finished parts. So this will be used for different sectors like mobility, building and living, health, energy, environment, information and communication. Next slide, please. So our research and development part starts with the melt spinning of biopolymers. So first of all, we would like to make monofilaments that will be used like biodegradable swing threads in footwear and clothing applications. So using of the dop tying technology for enhanced coloring properties. So again, we would like to stress here that this kind of bio-thread is the key to complete the biodegradability of the biopolypol demonstrators. Next slide. So here we can give a schematic of this melt spinning process for developing monofilaments. It starts with extrusion, then pass through the spinneret, then a drawing part is there, then going to the spin finish and going to the winder to make the filaments. Next one, please. In parallel, we'll be working on the multi-filament manufacturing also. So here we first select the biopolymers and the lab scale compounding with the encapsulated biodyes which we receive from the Brazilian side. Then these multi-filaments will be used for developing the knitted textiles. So apart from the dop dyed, we will develop white multi-filaments also. And the development of the texturizing process then is one of the important tasks. Then finally, we'll upscale the best process to pilot scale once successfully we do the work in the laboratory scale. Next one, please. So once we have the filaments, so we go for the knitting of the multi-filaments. So this work will be done by ITA in collaboration with our industrial partner Bahe. So here we do the definition of the requirements for the desired textile products, then testing of the knittability on small scale knitting machines, then testing various mechanical properties like air permeability, abrasion resistance, dimensional stability, etc. And during this stage, we will give the feedback to the dop dyeing, melt spinning, and texturization processes so that they can optimize the best kind of multi-filaments. Next slide, please. So I would like to introduce our German industrial partner. It's Bahe. This is a company in Germany. So they have 24 flat knitting machines. Then they develop total seamless products. And the technical knits are also done like 3D knitting, the glass fiber knits, aramid plus steel knitting. So this company is very much involved in different R&D projects. So for example, the Adidas store factory, for example, they develop the knitting technology for the Adidas research project Knit for You. Then again with the BMW, they work for developing 3D knitted textile facade for the BMW exhibitions worldwide. Then there are further developments going on like textile substrates for the cultivation of crops. Next one, please. So the technical activities of Bahe includes to develop the knitting process in the industrial scale machines depending on the inputs given by the ITA research. So first they will do some sample production for the validation of the knitting process. Then the final quality knitted textile manufacture is done by them. Then in additionally, the most important part, the production of the biopolypol demonstrators like shoe uppers, gloves and socks for the sports clothing. This also will be developed by them by the end of the project. Next one, please. So once we have the white knitted textiles, the final ones, so we go for some kind of novel dyeing and nano finishing of the knitted textiles. So here the main goal is to go for the enhanced dye fixation and to take care of the inherent drawbacks of these kind of natural dyes by improving the fastness and also to give the self-cleaning properties. So dyeing shall be carried out with some modern technologies like eco-modenting, where we would like to avoid the use of metallic mordants, then use of hydrolyzed proteins or a micro steam technique which is developed by ITA recently. So where we use the coupling of microwave and also condensed steam. And finally, the nano finishing will be done with the titanium dioxide and some other nanoparticles to give the self-cleaning effect on the final products. Next one, please. So I would like to give a summary of the project. So the Brazilian side, first sources of bio dyes will be identified. Then the biodyes characterization and further encapsulation of these dyes. Then Bayplast will be doing this injection molding of biopolymers, and the weathering and other testing will be done. And finally, the prototyping for developing the shoe soles will be carried out by this company. Then coming to the German side, the compatibility to spinnable biopolymers will be tested first. Then the compounding at lab scale, then the dope dyeing of mono as well as multi-filaments, then the knitted textile development, followed by dyeing, finishing, and we will develop some kind of prototypes like the shoe uppers with the knitted textiles and also clothing for the sports purposes. So the final goal after the 3 years of this project, we hope that we'll be developing Amazonian bio-colored, branded, sustainable shoes and sports clothing. Next one. Okay, thank you very much for inviting us for this very important conference. So we are really privileged to present this project. So thank you very much for the funding. And also we look forward to very fruitful collaboration with our Brazilian colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We thank you for this fantastic presentation. Just waiting to enter in the screen to continue. Congratulations, Dr. Paul. Congratulations, Carlos. We are really amazed with what a fantastic, all the presentations. I was just telling that here to my colleague in the table, Bruno Nunes. Please focus Bruno Nunes now because I want to share with him. Yes. I was just telling him that it's a privilege to see all these presentations. It's really a luxury, cultural, intellectual, whatever luxury to see what this cooperation has done. All the projects are fantastic. We're looking forward to promote it worldwide. Well, we are going straight to the bioeconomy implementation, recent examples from Brazil and Germany. And I pass the floor immediately to Dr. Rafael Schneider, addressing food security in sustainability certified value chain. Please, Dr. Schneider, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about food security and the food security standard at this occasion. Could you please confirm that my slides are displayed now, right now?
Yes, they are. Just put in the screen, full screen.
Very good. So let's get started first with introducing my organization. The slideshow is not working. I don't know why.
No, it's working, but yeah, now it's perfect. Perfect.
Good, yeah. So Welthungerhilfe is one of Germany's largest private aid agencies. We fight against hunger and we work with local partner organizations wherever possible. We pursue a holistic concept ranging from immediate disaster relief and reconstruction to long-term development projects. We have around 2,800 employees in 36 countries, and actually we conduct over 500 programs. The food security standard is a cooperation of Welthungerhilfe with Meocarbon Solutions based in Germany. Our topic is food security. Actually, more than 820 million people are going hungry globally, and we always have to bear in mind, and this is quite important while talking about bioeconomy, that the vast majority are farmers and agricultural workers. Food security is not a question of charity, but it's a basic human right, and the food security standard addresses this basic human right. If you look at the map of the Global Hunger Index in 2021, you see that the food insecurity in Brazil is quite low. But we have to look a little bit into detail and to be aware that hunger is on the rise globally. Unfortunately, all efforts which have been made in the past decades are now turning to an increase of food insecurity, and this also happens to Latin America, South America. If we look at Brazil, we see that we have considerable local disparities. All these yellow points demonstrate that there is a prevalence of insufficient food consumption in these regions. We have around 60 million people who are going hungry in Latin America and the Caribbean. And in Brazil, the severely food insecure people numbers are rising from 3.9 million until 2018 to 7.5 million until 2020. So food insecurity, insufficient food consumption is still an issue which we should bear in mind when we talk about bioeconomy strategies. Why do we address it through the right to food? The right to food has a lot of mutual dependencies with other rights. If a household is food insecure, they might send their children to work, and child labor might occur. The same thing is food insecure people most of the time lack access to health and also to education. If the right to water is not fulfilled, the right to food will also not be fulfilled. And if the right to work and the right to social securities are not accomplished, then food insecurity might also occur. We see that food insecurity is a strong signal for a non-fulfillment of human rights due diligence. So, if the food security standard addresses the question of food security in agricultural production, and by that is at the heart of the bioeconomy. In bioeconomy, we often use sustainability standard to demonstrate the sustainability of a bioeconomy. But if we look at the common sustainability standard, most of them do not clearly address food security. They might address social issues like labor conditions, etc., but they not in detail address food security. We have now two standards who are addressing it, who introduced the food security standard in their certification schemes. These are 4C for coffee and ISCC for plenty of biomaterials as well. So what is the food security standard about? It is about the right to adequate food and to protect it in agricultural commodities and within the field of responsibility of producers. The goal is to make sure that farmers and workers are food secure, and that food security in the area of influence of a producing area does not deteriorate. The food security standard is rooted in the right to food, as I already said, and it is based on the United Nations guidelines on the right to adequate food. The food security is based on four pillars and cross-cutting elements. And if you look at the pillar of stability of food, the food security standard asks to respect national food security and development strategies. The pillar regarding access to food has also different principles. One of it is, for example, to ensure market access and to contribute to local development, and also, of course, to respect labor rights and ensure good working conditions that include, for example, good living wages, acceptable living conditions. Because the pillar of availability addresses mainly the respect of land rights and also the respect of water rights. As I said in my introduction, the right to food is closely interlinked to the right to water. So this is addressed in the pillar of availability. If we look at the pillar of utilization of food, the food security standards make sure that there is that food can be eaten and consumed in a safe situation, good hygienic situation, and that good nutrition is guaranteed. The cross-cutting elements start at providing compliance grievance mechanism, and also, of course, addresses the assessment to monitor local food security changes. As I already said, in some areas of the world, food security is on the rise. This should be monitored and can be monitored with the tools of the food security standard. What is important to know is that the food security standard is not a standalone standard. It provides a set of criteria and indicators and assessment tools and checklists that can be integrated easily in existing sustainability standards, and the whole package of the food security standard and in combination with existing sustainability standards make sure that the right to food is respected in agricultural production. Why is it so important at this time? We are now living in a situation, a political situation, where we observe a transition from voluntary guiding principles to mandatory due diligence. In 2011, the United Nations published the guiding principles on business and human rights. This was somehow a starting point of this human rights discussion in agricultural value chains. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals from 2015, where all actors agreed upon zero hunger by 2030. This year, the German government passed the Due Diligence Act for Human Rights, and we are expecting also a European Human Rights Due Diligence Act in the coming years. So we are moving to mandatory due diligence, and we should get prepared in our bioeconomy value chains to address it in a proper way. Let's give me two examples of these upcoming due diligence requirements. If you look at the German Supply Chain Act, you see on the left side that child labor is addressed, forced labor is addressed, but also health and safety, reasonable wages, impairing food safety, access to drinking water, and sanitary facilities, and persons' health. Also, land rights are addressed. So the package I showed which is covered by the food security standard. Recently, a couple of days ago, the United Nations Aviation Agency approved new sustainability criteria for sustainable aviation fuels. And here as well, the common sustainability themes of greenhouse gases, carbon stock, water, soil, etc., were complemented by social issues like the human and labor rights, land use rights and land use, water rights, local and social development, and the topic of food security. So we see that the upcoming due diligence requirements for agricultural production will address clearly the question of social issues, including the question of food security. The food security standard is a practical tool to address that in management practices. It provides all the tools which are needed for a risk analysis to prevent and mitigate human rights deficiencies. It has all the tools needed to monitor food insecurity and other human rights deficiencies. It provides compliance mechanism, documentation, third-party verification, and then leads to reports to demonstrate coherence with and compliance with due diligence. So why should we include the food security standard into certification? So the right to food is interlinked with many other human rights, and to make sure that food security sensitive bioeconomy is realized, the food security standard is very helpful. And in combination with food security sensitive bioeconomy, we can make sure that we address social sustainability in bioeconomy strategies. Sustainability certification, including the food security standard, is also a practical approach to support corporate human rights due diligence. And the adoption of the food security standard promotes supply chain resilience and mitigates also reputational risks. Food security standard provides tools for continuous improvement and impact measurements to address food insecurity. And the come to the end of my presentation, I think that it is always important to bear in mind that food secure workers and farmers are more productive and reliable than if they are food insecure. And of course, if they are food secure, food security is then also the very foundation for a successful and sustainable bioeconomy. So thanks for the opportunity to contribute to this workshop, and let's go for food security in bioeconomy as already started in a different due diligence regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. You tackle such important point. We are in such an urgent moment to tackle this point of food security. Thank you very much for this contribution. And of course, what you said is paramount when you say that food security and social sustainability walk together. There is no one without the other, definitely. And of course, the foundation of a bioeconomy are the farmers and the workers. So only this presentation would give a whole event to be discussed. I was just talking this to Bruno. Let's do one event only regarding this topic, because it's absolutely
I would be
urgent.
happy to join and to contribute.
Oh, you are already invited. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Let's do it, as you say. Let's go. Go
Really
for
happy
it.
to have the opportunity to introduce this topic today.
I will, for sure. You are already invited. And to continue and to respect the time, we will talk about that later. I have the pleasure to invite now Dr. Norbert Schmitz, supporting the development of sustainable supply chains with GRAS, Global Risk Assessment Service, which is another topic that's very much high in the agenda. Please, Dr. Norbert Schmitz, the floor is yours. 10 minutes, please.
Yeah, can you hear me? Now you should. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And you see also my presentation?
Yes, yes. Beautiful
and
pictures.
It's fine. Okay, okay. Then okay, then first of all, thanks a lot for the kind invitation. It's a big pleasure for me to be here and to talk a few minutes about how we support with GRAS the development of sustainable supply chains. GRAS is a one-stop shop solution to implement and monitor sustainable deforestation-free supply chains and implement respective commitments. And we have just heard by Raphael Schneider what's coming up in the German market with the German supply chain law. We have respective due diligence requirements which are on the pipeline on European level. And what we do here actually with the GRAS tool, we support companies in fulfilling respective legal requirements or voluntary requirements. And voluntary requirements are at the time being the main a driver for the use of GRAS. So what you can do with GRAS, you can identify or verify that your supply chains are deforestation free. You can use GRAS for the risk assessments, for biomass sourcing, monitoring of certain regions is possible. And of course, you can support also certification with the GRAS tool. The development of GRAS has been developed by the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture through its agency FNR, and there have been several organizations being involved. It's a major undertaking. It was a major undertaking, and we also had lots of involvement from Brazil, and we have done several pilots in the Brazilian and Latin American context. GRAS can be applied worldwide for all crops and commodities. We have in Brazil, for example, soy. We have sugarcane, which is monitored by GRAS. And in the last 2 years, coffee has become also a major crop for GRAS, and we monitor the respective supply areas. So what do we do actually, and what is the benefit GRAS provides? We use satellite images for the verification of land use and land use change, and we do this with the latest available technologies, satellites, with optical sensors, but also here LiDAR. We use, for example, for carbon measurements, which are becoming more and more relevant and important. We work on behalf of private clients. I will show some examples later, but we do also lots of work for the German government, for European Commission, or more recently, we have also worked for the aviation sector for CORSIA verification of biomass for sustainable aviation fuels. What is important that we work with a high accuracy and with semi-automated methods to keep costs for users low, and this allows it to come relatively quickly to sound results, which then can be used by international agricultural traders or brand owners or whomever is interested in sustainable and deforestation-free supply chains. With the technologies we use, we can verify if there was a land use change, a deforestation, for example, or conversion of grassland here in Europe, for example, or in North America. This is helpful, and why and how is that so important? I will show an example here. What we have done for a large agricultural trader in Brazil is they export to Europe in particular, and they have assessed all the respective farmers in a certain region with respect to their compliance with certain deforestation commitments, also with respect to legal reserve, if those farmers have been fulfilling the legal reserve requirements, if there have been certain risks with respect to indigenous areas, protected areas, or if certain farmers were on the embargo list of the Brazilian government. What is interesting and nice with such a tool here, with such a work, that it's quite that once it is developed, you can do it more in an automated way, which allows to cover large numbers of farmers, large areas at low cost. And this, of course, provides certain confidence for the buyers of the biomass. We also work on traceability solutions, which are available. I will skip that for the time being. And final comment here, remark here is that we do, of course, not only work with respect to the monitoring of agricultural supply chains, but that with the technologies we have in place and the experience we have gained, we can also work in the context of forest monitoring, which is a major issue in Europe at the time being, due to the specific developments in the last years. But of course, it can be also applied in other parts of the world. And what is an important application, for example, is carbon measurement of forests and to assess the development of carbon stocks in certain forests over time. This is in a few words, yeah, and here you can see how we integrate those technologies in a tool here with a web tool which allows you to verify certain developments, land use change, or respectively carbon developments, carbon change. This is then all put in a respective database with forest ID, polygons, and so on. And a very short remark here, of course, also what is an important issue always is how do you get the data and how do you upload the data. We have also respective smartphone apps which can be used by forest owners or by farmers as required. That's it in a few words what we do with the GRASS tool, and I hope that was of interest for you. Thank you.
We thank you, Dr. Schmidt. It was you couldn't be in a more update agenda talking about carbon and carbon measurement, carbon stocks, and what a fantastic resources you can offer to the world regarding this topic. Congratulations. Very important. We are going to need you very strongly to share this knowledge and this competence. Congratulations. Well, to go straight to the forward, there's so many rich information we need time to absorb all this fantastic information we are having here, the privilege of having here. But now we're going to talk about the status cooperation between JKI and Embrapa. And it's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Florian Bittner. And just to let you know, Dr. Bittner, that as Dr. Guy de Capdeville had a problem, but he couldn't be better represented than by Dr. Judson Valentin, which is also Embrapa Researchers, and Dr. Valentin is the president of the Amazon portfolio of Embrapa. So you are going to be in very good company. So Dr. Bittner, the floor is yours, please.
Yes, thank you, Bia, very much. And hello to everyone. And it's a pleasure for me to tell you about the status quo of the cooperation between JKI and our partner institutions in Brazil. And please let me start with two presently running projects that we have with Brazilian partners. And when I say we, then this means the Julius Kühn Institute, the Federal Research Center for Cultivated Plants. So the first project, the running project that I would like to briefly introduce to you is this project called Bioeconomy. And the idea is that biodiversity is used as a resource for the development of microbial-based insecticides in a sustainable agriculture and forestry. And the objective here is to provide some fundamental information on the functional biodiversity of the so-called entomopathogenic fungi. And maybe you don't know what entomopathogenic fungi are. These are fungi that have or can cause damage to pest insects, and therefore they are beneficials. And these so-called entomopathogenic fungi will be used as a basic, or actually are used as a basic concept for the development of new biological plant protection products. So this is quite innovative in the field of plant protection. And the partners involved here are the JKI Institute for Biological Control and our very good partner, the Sao Paulo State University, in particular, the School of Agriculture. And we receive funding from the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, luckily, and we are quite happy about this BMBF funding because this is lasting for 3 years. That means until the end of 2022, and it provides us with a reasonable amount to fulfill these research objectives. The second project is the MGGL project, and MGGL is for mapping of grapevine genetic loci for the resistance to very important diseases in viticulture, namely to downy mildew and to anthracnose. And the objective here is to initiate a joint pre-breeding initiative and to develop important genetic markers for being applied in grapevine breeding programs in both countries, namely in Brazil and in Germany. And the partners here are our JKI Institute for Grapevine Breeding and the State University of Santa Catarina. Both partners know each other pretty well already for a long time, and so they made it to have a common project funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And this project is likewise running for a couple of years, in this case for 4 years, and it will also end in 2022. At next, I would like also to spend a few words on the Bioeconomy International call. The JKI has prepared 2 proposals, of course, together with Brazilian partners. And one is the Pacto Map idea, and I'm telling or talking especially about ideas. And the second one is the Reviflora idea. So the Pacto Map idea is basically on the improvement of public access to sustainable and ecosystem-friendly raw material sources of medicinal and aromatic plants in Brazil. The objective here is to establish a model approach for the ecologic and sustainable production of raw materials from selected, in this case, from 3 selected medicinal and aromatic plants, in particular at smallholder levels. The consortium is, as we think, very, very suitable. It's the JKI Institute for Breeding Research on Horticultural Crops, and it's Embrapa. It's the State University of Campinas. It's the Osvaldo Cruz Foundation, Fiocruz namely, and its company, the Centro Flora Group. The idea is to concentrate on the above listed plants, namely on black sage, which is a source of essential oils and which has anti-inflammatory and anti-tumor activities. The second is stonebreaker. Quebra pedra is, as the name implies, is used in the treatment against urolithiasis, which basically is the treatment against kidney stones. And the third medicinal plant is Alecrim pimenta, which is likewise used as an essential oil, but also in cosmetics as an ingredient for perfumes, for creams, and for lotions and deodorants. So the second idea is Reviflora, and this is basically representing a network of bioprospection and innovation in the Atlantic forest area. Here the objective is to employ native plant species in order to increase the diversity of cultivated crops and thereby to enhance the sustainability of agriculture in Brazil. So the partners here are, again, the JKI Institute for Breeding Research on Horticultural Crops and Apremavi, Reviflora, which is basically Grupo de Pesquisa, and the Fraunhofer Institute for Molecular Biology and Applied Ecology as a second German partner. The plants on which we were concentrating in this idea is various pepper species, but also Rhabdocaulon lavanduloides and the leafy cactus. So unfortunately, I have to say, both of these ideas did not make it to the final end. Reviflora was actually not completed and therefore also not submitted. Pacto Map was completed, it was submitted, but it was not evaluated due to some formal mistakes. So obviously we are among the 23 projects who did not pass the eligibility check. However, maybe at this point it's a good occasion to say congratulations to all those who have been successfully submitted their proposals and who made it at the end. So, and from what I heard, I think these are very, very competitive projects, and I keep my fingers crossed, and I'm sure these will be very fruitful collaborations with extremely good results. In our case, the good thing here is, even though that we did not make it, the teams get formed and the teams are in close contacts and they maintain contacts, and they're presently developing their ideas further in order to establish competitive ideas and project proposals for the next round, either in this call or maybe in other calls. So, and last but not least, I would like to give a very short update on our collaboration agreements with Brazilian partners. 2 years ago, we signed a collaboration agreement with Embrapa, and the idea here was to make a formal agreement on future cooperations in the areas of natural resources, of climate change, biotechnology and nanotechnology, precision agriculture, information technology, and production systems in general. Also, and basically this was also signed here or there where you are, namely at Green Rio. In the same year, in 2019, we also signed a collaboration agreement with the State University of Amazonas. And here the objective is to conduct common research in the field of agricultural science in general, but with a particular focus on medicinal plants. And just this year, actually just a couple of weeks ago, we are very proud and happy about this. We signed a common agreement with Fiocruz, and we agreed to collaborate in the future in or on medicinal plants, on bioeconomy and natural sources in general, but also on food safety, nutrition and health. And one aspect that I like very much, namely on communication and training of human resources, which in my understanding could also mean and hopefully will mean the exchange of scientists and hopefully also of young scientists. So, and with this, I'm at the end, and I would like to say thanks for your attention. Muito obrigado, vielen Dank, and maybe back to Bia.
Thank you very much, Florian. It's always a pleasure to see you, to have you with us in Green Rio. You're mostly welcome. And thank you for the presentations. 2 great projects. I still have hope that we can promote them next time. Very interesting. Congratulations. And I would like to ask you now, Dr. Judson Valentim, to do his presentation. Dr. Valentim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your invitation and the opportunity to participate in this event. And I'm, as you said, I'm replacing Director, Research and Development Director of Embrapa, Guy de Capeville. And I will start by saying that Embrapa has a long tradition of working on bioeconomy. One of the greatest examples and success stories is the nitrogen fixation in soybeans in Brazil that avoids application of chemical fertilizers and saves farmers close to $2 billion per year, besides avoiding emission of significant amounts of greenhouse gases in the production application of these chemical fertilizers. Besides that, Embrapa has developed over the last few years many bioinputs, for example, to control pests and diseases in crops, to increase water use efficiency, and to increase drought resistance and increase the efficiency of phosphorus utilization. Now, Embrapa is in the steps of finalizing one. Embrapa is in the final steps of finalizing a bioeconomic program for the Amazon, and early next year it should be making public calls for partnership with national and international partners and private sector too. And this bioeconomy plan has 2 main axes. One is to focus on bioeconomy that's being practiced by Indian and traditional populations in the Amazon over the last 12,000 years, and focusing on adding value to these products and developing innovations that make sure that standing forests can generate income and increase the well-being of these populations. We have one of the previous presenters talked about food insecurity in Brazil and in Latin America, and in the Amazon the conditions are even worse, because more than 50% of the rural population lives in extreme poverty or in poverty and depend on governmental complementation, income complementation programs. So developing solutions that can make the biodiversity and the standing forest to generate income and add value to these products is very important. And the other X, of course, is to identify molecules from the Amazon biodiversity that can be included in bio inputs, and that could generate investment in industries. And we need to do this not only to develop the bio inputs, but to make sure that the development of these production chains, they are developed in the Amazon, so that we have great impact on economic in the region, and we change the path from deforestation and converting to agriculture to investing in the natural resources. Now, we have a long tradition of cooperation with the German scientific institutions and with the German government. Embrapa has a long tradition of cooperation in many areas, in the agricultural sector, in the natural resource conservation and development of innovation for sustainable use. And the states in the Amazon also have a long tradition of cooperation with the German cooperation agency and the German government. I have an example of Acre that has cooperation with the German government since 1990. So I see from the proposals that was presented by the previous presenter, I see a lot of possibilities of increasing convergence and increasing cooperation with the Julius Kahn Institute and other German cooperation agents. And I hope we can, even though we were not successful in the submission of these proposals, I hope that the teams keep working together, and Embrapa is open to discuss not only this project, but new opportunities to work together, and not only in the Amazon, but in the other Brazilian biomes, and particularly the focusing on the well-being or increasing the well-being of the rural population, and making the transition from traditional agriculture to a more sustainable agricultural production.
Thank you very much for opening the possibility to continue the cooperation. It's very important to have your expertise on this. And we managed to get on time again. So before I say farewell to you or see you later, I would like to ask Dr. Bruno Nunes and Dr. Marcelo to please say a very brief 1-minute message, but a strong and 1-minute message. A challenge to Marcelo.
Mas eu vou deixar para o Ministério, né, que seja, fazer as honras finais da casa. Primeiro, é um prazer enorme estar aqui. Eu acho que isso é um marco, a gente está com todas as dificuldades. Eu, especificamente, fazer aqui um testemunho, né? Ou seja, eu tive Covid no ano passado, 2020, fiquei 30 dias em coma, depois fiquei mais 31 no CTI, depois mais 31 na unidade semi-intensiva, né? Passei todo o sufoco possível e imaginário, e eu sei o quanto que a ciência, a tecnologia e a inovação é importantíssimo para o Brasil e para o mundo. Ou seja, para o Brasil, muito mais, porque é uma ferramenta de combate à desigualdade social. Quando você consegue levar produtos, serviços, onde você não teria acesso, e a gente desenvolver isso na nossa casa é muito importante. E desenvolver isso na nossa casa, com a participação conjunta de países do primeiro mundo, como a Alemanha, é mais importante ainda. A gente vive num mundo cada vez com fronteiras cada vez mais fluidas. E eu acho que cada vez, se a gente olhar para o futuro do mundo, talvez essas fronteiras não existam mais. Não vai ter sentido, porque, como a gente já viu aqui, por exemplo, até no discurso inicial de vários pesquisadores, né, ou seja, da professora Eva, o país precisa de o mundo precisa muito de cooperação, e você ressaltou isso. E a gente vai ter que ser uma grande aldeia global. E a gente, os desenvolvimentos conjuntos, e aí a gente vai ter que repensar um modelo de como é que se explora isso tudo, de como é que a gente não fica, a ciência, a tecnologia, a inovação não fica refém de um modelo capitalista tão agressivo que inviabilize que essas coisas sejam socializadas para a grande massa de população do mundo, né? Quando a gente vê a quantidade de pessoas famintas ainda, quando a gente vê as pessoas abaixo da linha de pobreza, ou seja... Então, a minha fala final aqui é exatamente destacar a importância da questão dos acordos de cooperação, né, para que isso aconteça, para que a gente torne o mundo, para que os benefícios da ciência e da tecnologia não fiquem encapsulados às classes ricas, dominantes, e que a gente leve isso, sim, a uma camada de população que não tem acesso. Garantir a acessibilidade é papel da inovação, inovação no país, inovação para o mundo. Agradecer muito a participação aqui com vocês, e o meu colega aqui, a gente fez uma parceria muito grande, ou seja, a gente espera que, num aspecto mais pontual, que tão logo, rapidamente, novas parcerias, novos acordos de cooperação, que os nossos amigos alemães aqui olhem para nós aqui com muito carinho e que a gente possa ter grandes desenvolvimentos conjuntos. It will be very helpful to speak to the German guys. I celebrate these partners, our partners, and especially I think that it's very, very important to try to think that we are living in a very difficult world. I suffered too much with COVID last year, and I know that if we didn't have science, technology, and innovation, probably it would be impossible to transpass this serious phase that the world is living with COVID. And then and also I think that it's very important to highlight. It was possible to do and to find a vaccine in so very fast way, getting this and union everybody to this target. On the other hand, in fact, in Brazil we lost 600,000 people, and unfortunately this is too serious to myself. Then this kind of agreement between these countries is very important to fight with so many troubles that must be faced in this world that we are living today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcelo. Bruno, please.
Obrigado, Bia. Obrigado, Marcelo. Agradecer a todos a presença até o momento e também a participação de todos, né? Acho que como fica de lição para nós, foi muito interessante ter visto os projetos que foram apoiados pela chamada, foram selecionados, mas é interessante a gente também ter visto alguns dos que não foram e a importância deles. Ali se começou uma cooperação que não pode deixar morrer. Não foram selecionados agora, mas nós temos esforços para que, dessas lições aprendidas que o Marcelo citou, que o Bittner citou, todos os demais palestrantes aqui citaram, das lições aprendidas com esse edital, e para as próximas cooperações, e até mesmo para esses grupos, para esses grupos de pesquisas que foram formados, os projetos que foram feitos, que continuem. Porque, nas palavras que o próprio Marcelo Morales disse no começo, né, os problemas complexos que o mundo tem demandam soluções complexas, demandam cooperações entre nós. O Marcelo aqui também citou a questão da vacina. Nós temos um desafio ainda da pandemia a ser enfrentado. Nós vemos aí o ressurgimento de uma nova onda grave de Covid no mundo. E é somente com ciência e tecnologia que a gente vai conseguir transpassar esses problemas, esses desafios globais. A pandemia é um deles, e fez ressaltar vários dos outros problemas que nós temos, né? Nós temos aí, acabamos de sair de uma COP, onde ficou demonstrado cada vez mais a emergência global que nós temos com relação às mudanças climáticas. E temos aí também outros desafios, foi trazida a questão da fome, por exemplo, onde a gente tem aí a questão da sindemia global, que é os impactos que tem as mudanças climáticas nos sistemas alimentares e também na própria questão, não só da fome, como a má nutrição. A questão da distribuição de renda, a questão da desigualdade, são todas questões que é exatamente a ciência e a tecnologia ela tem que vir a favor e não contra, né? Então, nós temos esse papel nosso de direcionar a melhor pesquisa científica para a solução desses problemas. Então, fica como aprendizado para nós vários pontos que nós vamos levar em consideração na reunião, na próxima reunião do Steering Committee, no primeiro trimestre do ano que vem, e pegar exatamente essa fala do Camargo, de não deixar a inércia, né, da gente não deixar a inércia morrer, ou seja, estamos em movimento, vamos continuar em movimento para que isso seja cada vez mais aprofundada, essa relação entre Brasil e Alemanha. Então, e também agradecer a todos novamente pela presença até o momento e parabenizar os projetos que foram contemplados e desejar aqueles que não foram que continuem juntos e aprofundando essa relação para que a gente possa, em tempo, conseguir patrociná-los.
Muito obrigada. Thank you very much, Marcelo and Bruno. I think you did I cannot add anything beyond what you said already, because when Marcelo says about the boundaries, that doesn't exist anymore. We are living in a global moment. It's a global. We have only one planet. We must stop. We must change the paradigm, because when we say, "Oh, the clock is ticking," I would say that the bomb is ticking. It's very dangerous. The scenario of hunger, inequality, and how bioeconomy can be a way through this horrible challenge that we are facing. So I think that what Marcelo and Bruno says is absolutely what I agree and underline. And so I finish this fantastic moment we had. We had here in Brazil a whole moment. You had a whole afternoon, but otherwise we shared together how important is our cooperation. Cooperation still and will be the name of the game. And it's a privilege to have FINEP, to have the Minister of Science and Technology and the Minister of Agriculture working together to see how we cross this big challenge that the center is passing through. Thank you very much, Dr. Eva Miller again. Thank you all the speakers that were here with us all this period. It was really a privilege for Green Rio to have you with us. I hope to see you next year again with more projects, with more solutions, and with more cooperations. Thank you very much. It was an honor. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Parabéns pela condução brilhante, viu? Valeu pelas palavras aí, viu?